I see you have a new friend, Dr. Singer. I did not realize that you were that tall in relation to her. When I saw you guys standing next to each other the other day, I thought you were not quite as tall as that. Oh. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, Dr. Singer. I get it. We used to wear lifts back in the day when we wanted to be as tall as the girls that had already gone through puberty and adolescence. They were ahead of us. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Well, anyway, thanks for making her feel so welcome. We're still trying to decide on her name. Have gotten some great suggestions, but nothing yet. Any rate, welcome. Konnichiwa. O genki desu ka? Genki desu? Good. Good. All right, Dr. Singer. Well, I'm going to move you back where you're safe, along with our new friend. Our new friend who is very, very tall. Very beautiful. Yeah. Nothing wrong with using a little boost, huh? This is Dr. Singer's way of evening the ground, which is totally cool. No, I'm not trying to embarrass you, Dr. Singer. Everyone gets it. Everyone gets it. You've been the tallest one in the workshop for a long time, and now... Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, let's head down to the needle straight away. And let me do a little bit of introduction here. I guess if I'm going to do an introduction, I should probably do it broader than that, shouldn't I? Okay. So on screen right now, you see William Wessels, Singer 201-2, the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines. And this machine came from Avon Park, Florida, many months ago. Many months ago. I don't even remember when exactly. I think it was back in August, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was August, I think, is when this particular Rolls-Royce of Singers arrived at the workshop. August 13th of 2020, last year. It arrived last year. All of a sudden we have a new year and everything seems like, well, I'm way behind, but not really so. And this particular Rolls-Royce of Singers has a serial number if you want to look it up for fun. And who knows, maybe I'll send you something special anyway. But if you want to look it up for fun to figure out the birth date of Williams 201-2, it is A as in Apple, E as in Edward, 681589. AE 681589. And I'll give you some time to kind of type that in the chat. It's always good to practice looking up dates. Any one of us can mess up. I know I've rushed to look up a date sometimes, and I'll misread how many digits are in the serial number, and I'll be thinking it's a date with 6 digits when in fact it has to be 7 digits. So just look it up cautiously and for practice. So again, AE 681589. The Rolls-Royce of Singers here out of Avon Park, Florida. And this machine, as you'll see when we pop over to Facebook to look at the 4 groups of photos. Very seldom do I have 4 groups of photos of a machine, but this machine had so many things going on that I documented a more detailed history of Williams Rolls-Royce of Singers. And so you're going to see a lot of pictures pop up soon enough after we get done with some of these sew-offs. And I'll give you another opportunity to shine in the classroom. I'm going to ask you to tell me, and I've covered this before in other premieres, I'm going to ask you to cover for me and to tell me, and to tell all of us for that matter, what came first? The 1591, which is like the little brother of this 201-2, or the 201-2, which one came first? And if you know the manufacturing year brackets, that's going to give you an A+ in the class today. It's going to give you an A+ automatically. But I'm not going to give you a lot of time to look this up because I know any one of you could probably Google it. But if you actually know it from, from just preparation, getting ready for classes and paying attention to previous premieres, then that's going to give you a real big gold star along with an A+ for the class today. And you might know part of it, you might not know all of it. So any student can jump in. We're all students, right? Sometimes teachers, always students. So again, what came first, the 201-2 or the 1591? And if you know the bracket years that they were made, that'll be super cool. And then also you're looking up just for fun, what's the birth date of this 201-2 that belongs to William Wessels out of Avon Park, Florida? What's its birth date? Yeah, that should get you going. That should get you going a little bit. So in honor again of our new friend, that Dr. Singer again and she have become fast friends already, then let's go ahead and put on a little bit more Japanese style music, even though obviously this 201-2 is not a Japanese made machine. Nonetheless, we will do that in honor of our new friend at the workshop. So let's see what we can find. That first one we played is called Minyo-san Kayoko. Minyo-san Kayoko. Yeah, that's a cool one. So now we're going to do Han-koyuko. Han-koyuko. Here we go. All right, and the first thing we're going to show off, I think, is going to be some genuine alkyd. Let's go ahead and jump into that straight away. And I haven't picked a red thread, kind of a scarlet red for a long time, and I just was really wanting to do some sewing with scarlet thread, even though I know it's potentially problematic as far as how it shows up on, on video. So we're going to just roll the dice on this and give it a try. We'll just give it a try. And I also, I also did a number of sew-offs before that I posted pictures of on Facebook, and I can also show those to you as well. All right, let's buzz down a single layer, kind of down and around, and then we might double it to 2 layers of alkyd. All right, are you ready? Of course you are. All right, here we go. I'm going to turn this music down just a little bit lower, because if I remember correctly, this flute, I don't know if it's a pan flute or what it is, but it kind of goes up and down in volume a little bit. And I want you to be able to listen to how beautifully Williams 201-2 runs now. All right, here we go. I just love that. Dum, 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 dum. And as a New Year's resolution, I will close the box for our box closers. Yeah, in some instances the nap makes it harder to see the stitch, but on this particular sew-off, I think we actually have a clearer view of the lock stitch than we do the top stitch, just by way of how it presents. So we'll first of all take a peek at this top stitch, which is absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. I don't know if I can come any closer in on that. Let me try that. Come a little bit closer in so we can really see those stitches. Oh yeah, we got a clear view. It's a lot better than I thought it would be, actually. So the spacing, the formation is just absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. Those are gorgeous stitches. And again, we're talking about 3 to 4 ounces of genuine alkyd. I'll show you from the side again if you're new to the channel, but those stitches are just absolutely as they should be. Then we can kind of come out a little bit and look at the totality of the stitching, and that's equally spot on. Equally spot on. So kind of turning it to the side as best as I can with my screen pointing the wrong direction. I'll just kind of turn it to the side and let you see that. That is some thick stuff, folks. It really is. And again, it's not just ordinary leather. It's chemically processed alkyd. As soon as you run a leather through a chemical processing, it galvanizes that leather, and it makes it that much more difficult to get through. But you just literally heard this 201-2 that belongs to William Wessels out of Avon Park, Florida, just go down this alkyd like it was a light cotton. Not even an effort on the part of this 201-2. Didn't sound like it was struggling. Didn't sound like it was like, oh my gosh, don't know if I can do this one. I think Scott's got me going too far. No, not even close. And now we got the lock stitch, which also is absolutely spot on. Trying to hold my breath a little bit so I don't jiggle the camera as much. There, especially coming down the side, you can see those stitches just line up and present absolutely marvelously. Beautiful stitching. Spacing the formation is exactly as it should be. And we could spend a lot more time trying to pull those back, but you're able to see them clearly enough that this 201-2 just did a phenomenal job with this single layer of alkyd. But I think we're going to step it up a little bit now. We've done 2 layers of alkyd with other machines, and there's no reason we should not do it on this 201-2. So I'm going to give that a go right now. Let's come back down to the presser foot, kind of get in there nice and close. And we'll give this 201-2 an opportunity to sew 2 layers of alkyd. We'll probably go right down the middle. And I might go back to back, you know what I mean? Right now we've got it kind of like this. And we'll probably put this second layer right here, put this second layer back to back so we can look at that stitching more easily. Now this is what we're sewing now, folks. And if you're sitting, I hope you're sitting down, because that's going to freak a lot of people out. A lot of people will always be pitching the cowboy sewing machines and all those other light industrial machines as the only way to sew leather at this level. We're talking about 8 to 10 ounces of genuine alkyd, chemically processed. Chemically processed! I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts, the level of sewing that I put my machines through that have been through my process at the workshop. But you've seen it again and again and again. It's not even a newsworthy event anymore. It's kind of what you expect. And yet if you go to another channel and see anything even close to it, CNN is there. Everybody else is documenting that story because it just seems like it's crazy extraordinary. Here, it's the norm. Here, it's what we expect. Here, it's the standard, right? It's the standard. So let's see how this 201-2 does sewing a standard like this. And I'm going to put the other stitches facing up. And we're going to go right down the goalpost, right down the middle. And then we'll be able to see the top stitch here, and we'll be able to see that lock stitch on the other side. And I am off camera going to just slightly increase our presser foot pressure since we're using a standard presser foot. And we could just as easily have put on, I'll show you, we could have just as easily put on one of my roller feet, like this one right here. And then you've got the benefit of 2 metal rollers pressing that down against those feed dogs for feed. But I don't think we need it. If we were to go to 3 layers of alkyd, then I probably would put on a special presser foot attachment like this to give us that extra edge of feeding that material evenly over the feed dogs. But I think we're going to be okay here as long as I increase that presser foot pressure, which I already did. But a roller foot is a wonderful thing to have, and it does an outstanding job. I would say in some applications it does better than a walking foot. I'm going to say it again. A roller foot can actually outperform a walking foot with certain applications, including many applications of leather sewing. So, I'm a big fan of roller feet. I've got them in the workshop if you want to get one for your 201-2. And I think you'll be amazed at the difference in how that machine will perform when you're sewing at this level. All right, let's give this a try. 2 layers of alkyd. I did not test this off camera, so I'm kind of just going with faith and going with confidence, knowing that my machines are the strongest in the world, and we'll see how William Wessels, it's kind of fun to say, isn't it? William Wessel, it's almost like a tongue twister, like Sally by the seashore, blah, blah, blah. But at any rate, William Wessels 201-2 does. All right, and before I jump into this sew-off, let me throw this out there real quick. If you didn't look up the birth date yet, it's too late. I'm going to give it out right now, and if it's not posted in the chat. And that was just for fun anyway. But Williams 201-2 was born September 22nd, 1937. And there were 10,000 of them made. So about 1/5 the size of an average production group for Singer, which raises the value of this machine considerably. Again, only 10,000 made. Generally, Singer would make around 50,000. And again, born September 22nd, 1937. So if you got that entered into the chat before I just announced it, you get an A for the class today, an A+, plus you're going to get a gold star if you can also answer the other question I gave you about what came first, the 201-2 or the 1591, and then the manufacturing date brackets of when those machines were made. If you get all of that, man, oh man, you are the teacher's pet. You are on the best of the best list. All right. All right, here we go. 2 layers of genuine alkyd with this 201-2. Here we go. Oh, come on, baby. You can do this. You just get an idea of how tough it is when that 201-2 initially, and I'm not using a leather needle. I'm not using a leather needle. But it hits at those 2 layers initially, and it's like, oh, you got to be kidding. What are you doing to me? Don't you remember I'm the one that had the messed up motor? Don't you remember I'm the one that they used the axle grease on instead of a proper lubricant? Don't you remember that, Scott? Yeah, I remember all that. So what? You've gone through my process. You're ready to rock and roll now. You're ready to, you're ready to get it done. In the house. William Wessels, 201-2 is in the house. Yeah. Doing a little Brooklyn there. I met a wonderful man, by the way. His name, unusual name for a man, I think, but maybe I'm out of touch. But his name is Claire. And he's originally from Brooklyn. And he is one cool guy. He works at Walmart. I'm going to put that back up there. I think that's better. He works at Walmart as the Walmart man. And apparently that's a special program within Walmart where they will designate someone to be their core representative. And that individual, and I guess they have a Walmart woman too. I can only imagine they do. But that individual has an opportunity to go around to different stores. And they're on the front lines. Usually they're kind of, you know, even before the greeters, you're kind of meeting them in the foyer where you get your cart, and they're just a delight to talk with. And this gentleman is originally from Brooklyn. He's originally from Brooklyn. So, but let's look at these stitches now. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. I'm actually liking the look. And that's, again, the top and the lower row is the first row that we sewed with a single layer of alkyd. The middle row, if I can stop shaking the camera, the middle row is the row that we just sewed right now with 2 layers of alkyd. And I'm actually liking the look of that even better. Although, as you go through denser and denser material, if you're sewing at this level, you can tend to see that stitch kind of condense down a little bit. Just because, again, that needle and that thread is working so hard with the machine to pull that thread back up to complete that lock stitch. So the stitches in the middle will just be a tiny fraction shorter. And the way you could resolve that is to use a roller foot and to also potentially even increase that presser foot pressure a little bit more. That is a feed factor. When you see really nice, even, beautiful stitches, but they're a little bit shorter than they were on the first round and the second round, the top and the bottom row. That's a feed factor. And it's nothing wrong with the machine. It's just the reality of you're going through about 10 ounces of chemically processed alkyd with a non-leather needle with a standard presser foot attachment. And so those stitches are going to be condensed just a little bit. So if you wanted them to be, and they're real close. They're real close to the top and the bottom row. But if you want them to even be closer, add a walking foot or a roller foot, and then increase that presser foot pressure a little bit more. But let's look at them as far as quality of stitch. Quality of stitch, not clone of stitch. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. All 3 rows are spectacular. But especially that middle row, when you're talking about going, that's our top stitch for going through 2 layers of genuine alkyd. That's just a little bit on the crazy side. So let's look at that lock stitch now. And again, because we flip the leather back to back, we're only going to see 1 row of stitching. And that's our second, or I should say technically, that's our 3rd row of stitching that we did through the 2 layers of alkyd. So let's see what that looks like. All right, I'm going to use my clippers because I want that to lean forward just slightly, and it's going to tip on us if I don't kind of reinforce it a little bit. All right, and before I even zoom in on these, let me put on a little bit more Japanese music, and then we're going to transition from Japanese over to a big band flavor. Because this machine, being born in the year that it was, which was what year again? Do you remember? 1937. 1937. Big band was a big deal back then in 1937. And so we'll put on some big band music after this last Japanese style song. And this last one is called Imperial Forces. Imperial Forces. Kind of has that feeling, doesn't it? Yeah, there's a war about to begin. And it's between this leather and this 201-2. That's our lock stitch, people. Beautiful stitching, beautiful stitching. And again, I'll kind of tilt it towards the camera so you can see again what we just sewed through with William Wessels 201-2. Yeah, I know. We are all about insanity in this workshop, doing the incredible and the impossible and making it look pretty doggone ordinary. About 10 ounces of genuine alkyd, and this 201-2 that came here with motor issue. You'll see it all on Facebook. It came here with all kinds of challenges and things holding it back, and now, done. So I'm going to throw that to the back as a definite pass, and we're going to jump into our next sew-off, which is going to be genuine cowhide. We're only going to do a single layer of it, but what I want to demonstrate by sewing this next sew-off of this genuine cowhide is I want to demonstrate how much control and how you can harness the power of this 201-2. It's not just about blasting, it's also about control. So let me get this under the presser foot, and we're going to try to follow the edge of this as best as we can. You know, I don't have the greatest record sometimes in being able to follow the edge of things, but you know what? I try my best. And, well, thank you, Dr. Singer. That was very kind. Dr. Singer just said, Scott, you do great. You do great. You manage things extremely. Thank you very much. All right, so that was Imperial Forces, and now we're going to totally change it up here. And I hope our new friend enjoyed that music that kind of takes her back to the wonderful country of Japan that she comes from. But now we're going to put on some big band. okay. She just whispered in a very soft, gentle voice. She said, I love American music, big band too. So, wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, let's do it then. Here we go. Start a little bit soft on the big band side. A little bit soft. A little bit gentle. All right, let's have a little bit of fun going around this genuine cowhide now. Certainly we're going to be looking at quality stitching, but we're also going to be looking at control. Because I get that sometimes from people. They'll say, well, I don't know if I want a 201-2. It's got too much power. It's got too much drive. I just won't be able to harness it. I won't be able to control it. Well, that's a bunch of malarkey is what that is. Let's go. Here we go. I'm going to turn that music down a little bit lower. Let's go around this leather. Oh, I went off course already. All right, I'm back on course. I kind of cheated. Ha ha ha! Made it that time. That's kind of a little, I made like a little loopy thing on the other side. That's kind of fun. All right, let's go around a couple more times just for fun. What do you think? Put that needle down. We'll kind of go out here again, and we'll make a couple more loops. So I can try to redeem myself. Try to redeem myself. All right, here we go. There we go. That's about as far as I'm going to go with it. That's about as far as I'm going to go with it. I'm not sure how well, I think generally my camera does a pretty good job of picking up sound. But if you can hear this machine running clearly, and that's why I turned the music down so far, it is just running. I mean, it's running better than a Swiss watch right now. No offense to my friend Heidi over in Switzerland, because they make incredible things there. Swiss engineering and Swiss quality, I mean, it's world renowned. But I'll tell you one thing, this 201-2 is just humming up a storm right now. A lot of people will say a machine purrs. I've never heard a machine purr, but I've heard a machine hum. And when a machine hums, it is just like music. It's just like music, it really is. All right, I might use my sew-off holder now that Maddie sent me from Florida. Although the lighting, I want to make sure the lighting is right too. Because red against anything is just tough. It's really tough. Let's see. I think that's going to be about as good as I can get it as far as evenness, etc. All right, let's zoom in on these and take a look. This again is a single layer of genuine cowhide, about 3 to 4 ounces. And again, take into account that this is going to be red against a brown. It's a little bit hard to see. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let's come off the tripod. Let's not even battle this beast. Let's just come right off the tripod and see if this will help us get a better picture of these. And I might also just kind of take it off of that support display stand and hold it in my own hand. I think that might actually give us a better ability to see it. It might not. I don't know why. I've learned my lesson before about using red, but I still love to use red thread sometimes. Let's look at it from the side. I think that might make it a little bit easier to see it. Yeah. We'll eventually get to my really weird little turn. So yeah, I think the key with red is to kind of turn it on the side like that. See that? We're actually almost looking at two rows at the same time, which is cool. There was a wonky turn on my part there. There was a wonky donkey turn. Yeah, we'll look at a couple rows at the same time. We'll look at a couple rows at the same time. There was my weird little turn right there on the right. So that is some beautiful stitching. It really is, folks. That's some beautiful stitching on the part of this 201-2. And again, look at it from the side, what we just sewed. That is not a garment-style leather like I've seen some people sew. That is some serious, genuine cowhide. And yet this 201-2, just look at that field of stitches. Just did a bang-up job, just a spot-on job. There you can really see them. Just how beautiful they are, how beautifully lined up they are. So maybe that's my secret about showing you red on anything, is just kind of turning it sideways like this so you can look at it as a field of stitches. Kind of like a field of dreams. So let's turn it over. Let's look at that other side. We'll look at that lock side, see what we can see. We may not be able to see a lot. I'm just letting you know that. Well, we're going to do our best. Let me kind of go like this, and we'll kind of come in on it now. So a little bit hard to see. We'll see the stitches kind of pop through at certain points and present themselves much clearer. But that is a lot, you know, just a fantastic lock stitch. Exactly as it should be. And again, we're talking about 3 to 4 ounces of genuine cowhide. So can a 201-2 sew leather at a serious level? When it's properly prepared, the answer is yes. Not all 201-2s can sew even this level of leather. Let alone if I grab that other one in the rear. Where is it? There it is. If I grab that other one in the rear that we did, you look at them side by side. So the leather sew-off we just did with this beautiful field of stitches on this genuine cowhide is just a fraction of the leather we sewed with this alkyd. And there are some machines that would struggle with either one of these sew-offs, but especially the one on top, the lighter one. And that's because they have not been optimized. They haven't been optimized. They haven't gone through my exclusive process in the workshop. So, but both of these are genuine example of what my process can yield. They really are. They highlight it beautifully, better than I could ever articulate it in just saying, look, that quality of stitching through here, 2 layers of alkyd, definite passes. So I'm going to throw those to the back, and we're going to move on to our next sew-off. I love this part of the process. I really do, because all of the prep, all of the effort that I poured into William Wessels 201-2 is evidenced under the needle right now. It's not a matter of doing a single sew-off like you'll see some people do, And again, as I've said before, I hate to say it, but it's true. Sometimes you'll see a machine for sale and you'll see a sew-off underneath the needle or next to the machine, and that sew-off was not even done on that machine. It wasn't even done on that machine. That's why I take it to the next level at these premieres and show you live what that machine can do through a wide variety of different materials, different thicknesses. And I document it on video because I don't want any question at all as to whether or not that's real or not. You can watch it for yourself again and again and again. So that first big band song we played, which was kind of like almost putting you to sleep a little bit, was called Cocktails. And the next one is called Home. Home. Here we go. All these are kind of like laid back and chill. You don't expect that from big band, really. I don't. All right, let's get some of that leather droppings off of the bed of this machine. It's the only bad thing about some leathers is they just drop their little droppings all over the place. It's like having a puppy. What the heck? Have any of you ever gone through the puppy thing? Trying to potty train a puppy to do potty outside instead of inside or everywhere else? Yeah, it's a challenge. It is. It's a challenge. All right, speaking of challenges, let's do some acrylic fiber. I think that's what I've got lined up next. I've shown you this stuff before. It's used to make awnings. Acrylic fiber is not super thick, but it's like sewing patio blocks. It really is. Now we're going to go and try to sew 2 layers of this stuff with this 201-2. Again, when you feel it with your hands, it almost feels like sandpaper. It literally feels like sandpaper. It's got that tight weave, that grit to it. And I mean, when you're talking about awning material, duh, it's going to be out there in the elements. It's going to be out there with all the temperature changes, the wind, and it's got to be able to stand up to that. So let's see if this 201-2 from 1937, September 22nd, 1937, can stand up to this acrylic fiber stuff that's used for awnings. Here we go. Almost made my turn too slow there. Almost made my turn too slow. All right, let's go down to the finish. And I'm not going to close the box this time. Not going to close it. All right, we'll give this, I've been really harnessing back the power intentionally. Now we'll give it a little bit more gas going down. Can you hear that? That just tells you how tough this material is. Listen. This is, I'm really glad I discovered this stuff. I mean, it is super, super effective in testing the power of a machine, especially a machine like this that was struggling in so many ways. And if you don't do Facebook, that's part of the reason I've moved towards sharing progress shots during YouTube premieres like this, because those of you that don't do Facebook, I really want you to get an appreciation for where that machine started. Where did it start? We can see what it's doing now. We can see it's performing at the top of its game. But what did it look like before? What was it doing before? These are gorgeous stitches, although they're going to be a real pain to see with this thread color on this material. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to line it up like that. We'll kind of zoom in on it and we'll see what we can see. I still haven't gotten a big band song that I really like yet. I mean, when I think of big band, I think about my time in, you know, jazz bands and pep bands and all that kind of stuff when we were jamming it out. Me on my trumpet. And boy, I'm not seeing it yet. And on my recent trip to South Bend, Indiana, how cool was that I met a fellow trumpet player, right? Kat, that works with Christy Dunn. Kat is a trumpet player, and I would love to hear her play. I would love to play with her. Maybe when I go back to South Bend, I'll take my trumpet with me and kind of let her know I'm going to be bringing it. Maybe we can do a little bit of jamming together. Although I'm way out of practice. She would just blow me away probably. So this next one is called Innocence. Also supposed to be big band, but we'll see. I don't know. It's more like chill band than big band, but whatever. That's okay. Turn it up a little bit. All right, let's check out these stitches. Again, this is acrylic fiber, 2 layers of this stuff. Used to make awning. Look at there, especially you have a real clear view of them. Absolutely spot on. And because we're getting definition, if I keep it still, because we're getting definition like that, you know right away that that bobbin case, that raceway bobbin case area is doing its thing. It's working. It's working spot on to get quality of stitching like that. You know what I mean? All right, let's continue around this and look at the rest of these stitches. Acrylic fiber, man, this stuff is intense. Whoops, wrong way. Get both of these rows at the same time. All right, totality of stitching. I'm going to make you all crazy looking at that. The pattern of that acrylic fiber just really starts to mess with your eyes a little bit, you know what I mean? So let's look at that lock stitch now on this acrylic fiber. There's our lock stitch right there. And as my friends say in the UK, when William Wessels' machine arrived at the workshop, there are some folks that would have said, that just belongs in the dustbin. You just need to bin it. You just need to bin that machine because it's not salvageable. Well, I beg to differ. This is our lock stitch, folks. Two layers of acrylic fiber. This stuff is crazy. And look at right down there, you've got a real clear view. Hold on a second. You got a real clear view there of the stitch quality, the stitch formation, the presentation of the stitch, the glory of the stitch, right there. That's exactly what you want to be seeing. And through 2 layers of acrylic fiber that's used to sew awnings with, that's saying something. Look at that right there. We could just stop right here. We just end the premiere other than looking at the progress shots on Facebook. And I've done my job. I've demonstrated, I've proven. The proof is in the pudding through this sew off alone. Not alone, but I mean, we've already done the alkyd, 2 layers of that, single layer of that. We've done the genuine cowhide. But this acrylic fiber, folks, when it can lay down a stitch like that, good gravy. And a lock stitch to boot. So let's look at the totality of the stitching, which pretty doggone challenging on this material with that red thread, but I just had to use red thread today. I just had to. Haven't used it in so long, it's kind of like, what are you, afraid of red? No, I'm not. So this is a definite pass. 2 layers of acrylic fiber, a spot-on sew-off with William Wessels 201-2 from 1937. Well done, 201-2. But we are still not getting any real big band music. This continues. I might go back to some Japanese music, because at least we got real Japanese music. This is not big band music. So that last one was Innocence, which again was put us to sleep, for goodness sakes. So let's go to the next one, which is called Pop in Gold. Pop in Gold. Let's see what this sounds like. Okay, all right, now finally, all the other songs were like putting us to sleep. We finally have something that's picking it up a little bit, but this still isn't really big band to me. You know, I think YouTube does a great job in a lot of areas, but when it comes to indexing songs correctly, I don't know if I'm buying it. I don't know if I'm buying it. All right. So let's do now some compressed felt. Compressed felt is, again, the stuff that broke one of my Schmetz needles in one of the premieres. It broke the needle, it snapped it. So you already know that this stuff is pretty doggone tough. I don't know if I would rank it quite as high as the acrylic fiber, but again, I'm going to be doing 3 layers of this compressed felt. I'm not doing just 2. So I'm going to fold it towards the middle, and I'm going to fold it one more time to get us up to 3 layers. That's kind of our gold standard when it comes to this compressed felt. If a machine can do 3 layers of this, there's not a lot that can hold that machine back. Because this stuff, again, because of that, of how compressed the fibers are in this material, it's like sewing concrete, almost. All right, so let's buzz down this and see how this 1937 Rolls-Royce of Singers does with a task like this. I think I did a pretty good job of folding it, but I don't know. All right, so 3 layers of compressed felt. Let's see what happens. Here we go. Don't you hate when I say that? Let's see what happens. Ah! All right, we're making our turn. Down to the finish. Here we go. Not closing the box. Ha ha ha! All right. Goodness, goodness, goodness. This 201-2, with all of the challenges that it had, including some major motor issues going on, there's just nothing that's even remotely giving this Rolls-Royce of Singers a challenge right now. And if you didn't see the recent premieres that I shot when I was down visiting my friends at the History Museum in South Bend, Indiana, if you didn't see those premieres, you've got to especially check out my tour with Skylar through the mansion, Kapscha home, which is also known locally as the Oliver Mansion, because let me tell you one thing, and I'm going to pull these back for you. I'm going to see if I can zoom in even a little bit closer and we'll pull them back. But when we toured that mansion, I don't remember how many rooms, was it like 38 rooms or something like that? When we toured that mansion, that family of means that were basically millionaires back in the day, out of any machine that they could have picked, they picked the 201-2 to have in their mansion. So that's saying something. I've been bragging about 201-2s for a real long time. And it's because of stuff like this, where they can lay down stitches like this that are absolutely drop dead gorgeous through 3 layers of compressed felt like this, and make it look like it's sewing a light cotton. It's a light cotton, folks. It's kind of what this machine does. It makes it look so doggone easy. So easy. And yet these stitches are absolutely picture perfect, spot on in every way. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch, the glory of the stitch is just, it doesn't get any better than that. It just doesn't get any better. Making sure I'm all the way in the shot there. I'm kind of looking over my shoulder as I'm doing this. And we could probably see it to some extent, but not as clearly as when you pull the material back like this. But once I pull it back, it usually allows that stitch to kind of pop through a little bit better. But see how it puckers in the middle right there? See that puckering in the middle? Almost like a quilted look? That just shows you the intensity of how compressed those fibers are. When you sew them, it just, boom, it locks them in. And it just makes them pop through beautifully, like these right here. Just absolutely drop dead gorgeous stitching. I'm just going to kind of walk it across now so you can look at it as well. Absolutely gorgeous. And if we turn it over, our lock stitch is just as spectacular. As a matter of fact, I might not even have to, I'm going to kind of squunch it down a little bit, but I may not even have to pull these back for you, because they are presenting very, very well. Let me come up a little bit on that. That's our lock stitch, folks. Again, the lock stitch is always going to be more difficult for that machine. Always going to be more difficult because of that gravity factor of having to suck that thread back up through material as intensely compressed as this. Oops, a little bit low. There we go. Trying to get the right angle here. That's always a challenge when you're looking over your shoulder, you know what I mean? This bottom row is a little bit easier to pull back because I have more to grip with my thumb there. All right, let me just kind of walk it across now because I'm doing my best to try to give you a real clear view of these stitches, but I know it's a little bit challenging. It's a little bit challenging. And this again is our lock stitch, if you can imagine. Absolutely a pass. 3 layers of compressed felt is a no-brainer when it comes to just how beautifully those stitches are presenting there. And again, compressed felt, it is intense stuff. Intense, very intense material to sew. Actually, everything we've sewn so far is intense. I mean, we've got the acrylic fiber, we've got the compressed felt, we've got the genuine cowhide, we've got the 2 layers of chemically processed genuine alkyd. We've already proven the capabilities of this 1937 201-2, but we're not done yet. We're not done. So we just did pop and gold, which was a little bit better, but still not big bandy. Now we're going to try farther ridden. Farther ridden. Let's see what this sounds like. Yeah, it sounds like rock. All right, I'm going to type in big band dance. Maybe that'll get us something. Hold on. Big band dance. All right, so I just typed in big band dance. Let's see what this sounds like. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting somewhere. We're somewhere now. We are. All right. So I didn't give you the answer to the second part of that question yet, which I'm going to do right now. After I get a swig of water. So the question I asked you earlier And let me get this new material that I'm going to introduce to you. It's an upholstery style material. And we're going to go through several layers of this too. This is used in upholstery applications. So I'm going to fold it in half and get us up to 2 layers. Then I'm going to fold it one more time and get us all the way up to 4 layers. That's what we're going to be sewing right there. I know. And then I'm going to give you the answer. Let me get this into position. Press your foot down. All right, so what I asked you is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? No, I didn't ask you that. I asked you what came first, the 201-2 or the 1591. The answer is the 1591. It actually came on the scene 3 years before the 201-2. So the little brother of the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines was on the scene in 1932. And then it was in production until 1956. The 201-2 did not. I love that ending, don't you? The 201-2 did not come on the scene until 1935. And then it was out there in production until 61. So 1591 left production in 1956. The 201-2 was in production for about another 5 years until 1961. But again, the bragging rights is who was there first. Clearly, the Singer 1591 was there in 1932, and then 3 years later in 1935, the 201-2 said, "Hey, I'm here. Big brother is in the house." So there you go. If you got those right and you were the first to post them, look at the chat. If you were the first to post the correct answer as far as who came first and what the manufacturing bracket years were for those machines, then reach out to me and I'll send you something special, okay? I'll send you something special. All right. All right. So now I'm going to type in the search, because we only had like 2 songs for Big Band Dance, which is kind of disappointing. Now I'm going to type in, let me type in trumpet. I'll type in trumpet and see what we get. All right, so wow, we got all kinds of things. Let's try Cooper Avenue. Cooper Avenue is this next one. Oh yeah, we've done this one before. Yeah. All right, so we got 4 layers of this new upholstery type material. Let's see how William Wessels, 1937 Singer 201-2 does on this task. Here we go. And take into consideration what we've already sewn on this needle. Plus, I didn't even show you. We did all of this as well, off camera. We did this off camera. We did this off camera on the same needle. This is like 6 layers of U.S. Army grade canvas, same needle. And then we also did this protected full grain leather as well on this same needle. I like that gray, don't you? The way that stitch presents. Yeah, baby. Gray and red, they just go hand in hand. They're like peas and carrots. And look at the range of stitch length that I laid down on this protected full grain leather, all the way down here on the bottom to like 30 stitches per inch, all the way up to the max of right around 6 stitches per inch. And this was all leading up to this premiere on this same Schmetz needle. I like Schmetz a lot. If you're listening, Schmetz, yeah, I love you. I love you. Sounds like the line from The Grinch. I love you, Max. I love you. All right, let's give this a try. 4 layers of upholstery material. This is commercial grade stuff. Oh my goodness gravy. Here we go. What do you think of that? I mean, honestly, listening to that machine run, I could do that all day long. A 201-2 that is running at the top of its game is better than music. It is music. It's its own music. All right, and I think these stitches are probably going to be like crazy, ridiculous, difficult to see, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to use my thread holder, which I'm dropping. All right, I'm going to use my thread holder, and I'm going to set it up vertically. We'll see what we can see. We may not be able to see much, but we'll give it a try. All right, so that was a little bit better tune than the last one, Cooper Avenue. Now we're going to try Antimatter. 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 Remember those science fiction movies? They used to use like antimatter guns, and then they'd shoot somebody with this antimatter gun, and then all of a sudden they'd like start floating and stuff. All right, you probably didn't watch the same program as I did, but oh well. So this is, again, 4 layers of this new upholstery material. Look at right at the beginning stitch line right there. That pretty much tells you everything you need to know. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch. And look at the weave of that upholstery material. That is just wicked. That is wicked material. I mean, if you were to rate this like movies, it would be PG-13, almost R. It would be, yeah, wicked. But you know what? Let's go down and look at these stitches, and I think you're going to be incredibly impressed. Pretty much like every other stitch off we've done. Right there, look at that. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely brilliant. Brilliant stitching. Brilliant stitching on the part of this 201-2. We'll go up one more time, and then we'll turn her over. Again, we're talking 4 layers of this upholstery material, commercial grade upholstery material. So let's flip this around and look at that lock stitch. Pull it back a little bit. All right, let's see what we can see. Start at the bottom this time. This again is our lock stitch. Absolutely as it should be. Four layers of this commercial grade upholstery material, and it's laying down a stitch like this for a lock stitch. That is just crazy. It really is. It really, 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 really is. That is wicked, wicked material. I am so glad I found it. All right, stop laughing, Scott. Stop laughing. I love finding wicked material, though, because it just evidences even more the difference of what my machines can do. So these 4 layers of commercial grade upholstery material, look at that from the side, folks. I've got my lens facing the wrong way. Hold on a second. There we go. Look at that from the side. Here, let me come up even closer to the camera. Look at that from the side. Yeah. Definite pass. That's going to the back, along with the compressed felt, the acrylic fiber, the genuine cowhide, the alkyd. Most people on a channel would stop by now. They'd be like, okay, I've shown enough. I've shown enough. If they don't believe by now, they are never, ever, ever going to believe. They're not going to believe. They're not. But I don't do it to make you believe. I do it because it's a celebration. It's a celebration of what that machine is capable of doing now versus when it arrived at the workshop. Because you'll be able to see straight away by looking at the Facebook shots that this 201-2 was ready for the bin. It was ready to be binned, as my friends over in the United Kingdom say, which basically means thrown in the trash. That's what most people would think with the condition of what this machine was in. And part of it was I'll just say it, some knucklehead decided that they were going to flood this thing, the motor and everything else, with some sort of a weird axle grease. You would expect it, if you work on cars, or if you've ever been in there underneath the hood with your mechanic or whatever, and they've been underneath the undercarriage of your machine, and they said, hey, you got a split on your CV boot. Your CV boot is part of your steering assembly on the front of the car. And when a CV boot splits, it allows this weird gray axle type grease to ooze out. And if you don't catch it, what'll happen is that CV joint will dry out and it'll give out, and you'll just have a major fail. Your wheel could turn in, it could turn out, it could fall off, it could do all kinds of things. That axle grease in that CV boot is that essential to the operation of the machine. Well, that's great for a car, but you don't use that sort of grease on a sewing machine, and they did everywhere, as you'll see in the Facebook shots. I'm telling you, just makes me crazy. Why? Kind of like Hans recently, who just recently had a birthday, like Sonny as well. We got like a birthday bonanza thing going on. He recently sent me some pictures that he got from one of the groups that he's a part of, where somebody again did not follow basic shipping principles, and this machine arrived all busted up. Oh my goodness, totally preventable. Okay, so the next one is called The Light Within, which is also coming up under the search of the keyword trumpet. So let's see what this is all about. It's kind of pretty. Yeah. All right, let me take my shot again. Yep, that's good. Okay, so what we're going to sew next is, let's see what we're going to sew next. I think I'm going to sew some of this this canvas that Maddie sent me from Florida. Remember, she sent me that big bolt of this canvas. It's commercial grade canvas, and it was in part because I had mentioned that I was getting low on the U.S. Army grade canvas. And what I found is this stuff is actually more intense. It's even more commercial grade than the U.S. Army stuff. So, of course, we're going to use it because it's going to test the machine even more. And we're going to do 6 layers of this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and fold it in the middle, which will get us up to 4 layers. And then I'm going to fold it one more time to get us all the way up to 6 layers. This is what 6 layers of commercial grade canvas looks like, folks. 6 layers. Yeah, I know. So let's get that underneath the presser foot, and we'll buzz down and around with this and see how William Wessels, 1937, Singer 201-2 does with this task. And you know what? Let me refold this real quick. It's kind of messy. Let me do it right. There we go. That's better. I like that better. All right, 6 layers of commercial grade canvas, compliments of my friend Maddie from down in Florida. Here we go. All right, and down to the finish. And nope, not going to close it. Not going to do it. Here we go. But I'm going to do one better. I'm going to zip back up and go diagonal to our other stitch lines. We'll go right into that corner and almost create like a little division there in the stitch lines. Here we go. That's fun. I could do it the other way too, but I think we'll stop there for right now. The air is real dry down in the workshop, so I get this thread when I'm clipping it, it's trying to stick to my fingers. Trying to stick to my fingers. What's that about? All right, so let's take a look at these stitches, which are, wow, wow! I really like this upholstery material. Look at that from the side to give you an idea of what we just went through. 6 layers of this stuff, which from a thickness standpoint, if you look at it like from leather ounces, it's probably around 14 to 16 ounces of leather thickness, the equivalent anyway. All right, so let's do this. I think I can get a pretty good shot of these just like this. But first of all, I'm going to type in the keyword dance because I am just going to sleep with this music that we got going on right now. It's very nice. It's very pleasant. But I'm looking to pump it up a little bit. This is a celebration of this 201-2, which was nearly dead. And now it's alive. So let's pump it up a little bit with 19th Floor is the next song. Let's see what this sounds like. Yeah. This is me. This is me. I'm feeling it now. I'm feeling it. Come on, let's step it up a little bit. 19th Floor. Now it makes me wonder what's on the 20th floor. Maybe there isn't a 20th floor. I don't know. All right. We got some super hardcore commercial grade upholstery material now. Let's start in this top row and kind of go around. Wow. Wow. Wow! Yeah, baby! Oh, man. That is some beautiful stitching. Oh my goodness gravy. Let's look at all of it together if we can. 6 layers of this commercial grade canvas. Oh, yes. Yes. All right, let's come out of this. Totality, I'm sorry. I got too excited there. I was ready to go. Let's go with the lock. Let's look at the lock stitch. Beautiful stitching. Wow. Let's see how it did with that lock stitch, which again is going to be always the tougher of the 2 stitches to do. Come on there. Come on. Stay put. Stay put. All right, we're going to hold you in place then. This is our lock stitch. 6 layers of commercial grade canvas. Yeah, beautiful job, beautiful job. I would not be surprised in the least if my needle is getting a little bit tired, but look at, in spite of that, laying down just spot on stitching. Again, we're talking through 6 layers of commercial grade canvas, and this is our lock stitch. Wow. Wow. Totality of the stitching. Let's look at it. Come on. Absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous stitching. And that's our lock stitch again, folks. Through 6 layers of this commercial grade canvas that my friend Maddie sent me from down in Florida. Look at that again from the side. Look at that from the side. a definite pass. And that's 6 layers again in that, folks. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, I have total belief and trust in my process, and I constantly try to improve it more and more and more and more. Constantly try to even step it up higher than it already is, which is pretty doggone high. But when I see results like this, knowing where this machine started, holy mackerel. So that was 19th floor. Now we're going to go with cat. Oh, this sounds like a fun one. Let's see what this sounds like. Cat Shat in the Box. Cat Shat in the Box. Where do they come up with titles like this? I mean, really. Yeah. All right. Come on, Mr. Bean. Let loose a little bit, baby. Come on. Come on. I'm going to light you up. Come on. Any of you that are watching right now, put some dance type emojis in the chat. Come on, give us some dance emojis. Oh, come on, Mr. Bean. You're holding back. I know you're holding back. Nice job. Nice job. Nice job. Are you upstaging Mr. Bean here, Obermeister? Because he wasn't cutting loose? Yeah, I agree with that. He was kind of holding back. Well done. Well done. You got to cut loose, Mr. Bean, or everybody's going to upstage you. Seriously. That was a fun one. I could definitely play that one again. But we won't. We won't. All right, Mr. Bean, good dancing overall. But yeah, I didn't... Oh, you pulled a muscle in your leg, huh? Okay, all right. I hear you, man. It can happen to the best of us. All right, so our next one is called Kelvin Harris. Kelvin Harris. Yeah. Now, this is the first time I've sewn this stuff, too. This is a ribbon material. A ribbon material like you would use for dresses. And who knows, you could even make a ribbon and put it on a package, I guess. But I wanted to give this a try and just see how this 201-2, especially with a doesn't have a roller foot on it, handles something that's as slippery as this stuff. Real, oh my goodness. Feels like they greased it or something. Let's give it a try. Here we go. All right, let's go to the finish. Let's go to the finish. Ha-ha! Beautiful job of feeding something like this underneath that presser foot over those feed dogs. Beautiful job. So that just goes to show you if you're sewing heavy duty or lightweight, if that machine is running at the top of its game, if it's gone through my process, then it's going to get the job done. It's going to get the job done. Yeah, it is. All right, let's take a look at these stitches. Boy, how am I going to display these puppies? This ought to be interesting. I may have to come off the tripod on these. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I will. Let's do it. Let's come off the tripod on these and look at these from the side, kind of like we did with the other one. It's a lot easier to see them. A lot easier to make them out, you know? Lot easier. All right, let's take a look at these stitches through this ribbon material, which I've just tried for the first time. Come on now. Let's see how I can hold this. We'll look at these as best as I'm able here. Let's see what we got going on. Oh yeah. Yeah. There we go. That's about the right angle. We'll look at that first row first. Stitch formation, stitch presentation, stitch alignment. Nice. Real nice. This stuff is fun to sew too. This stuff is fun to sew. You actually see that back row pretty good too, from this angle. Yeah, I'm liking this a lot. Let's turn it around though. Let's turn it around and look at it this way, so we can look at that. The row that was in the back, we can look at it in the front now. We can look at them kind of like front to back, if you will. Oh yeah, I like that a lot. My friends in the United Kingdom say that's bang on. Spot on, bang on. That's really, really good. You can really see that stitch definition nicely. Beautiful job handling a material that is super slick and super tricky. You can see it right there especially. Those stitches are just absolutely spot on. Just spectacular. All right, let's turn it over and look at the lock stitch now. Let's turn it over and look at that lock stitch, which again is going to be the tougher of the two stitches, but we'll see how this machine did sewing that. So I think we could probably, if we're going to be sewing a lot of this stuff, I mean, we've got some good looking stitches, but if we were going to be doing a lot of this stuff, I would increase that upper tension just a little bit to get that to pop through even more clearly. Yeah, I would definitely do that. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go back up on the tripod, and I'm going to increase that upper tension a little bit. Again, we've got some bang-on stitches. They look pretty solid. But I don't know that they're quite as poppy as I want them to be. Oops, now we're going on a focus. Come on, camera. You silly milly thing. Yeah, let's just do a row right down the middle. So this is our lock stitch that we're looking at right now. I think. Actually, no, this is our lock stitch right now that we're looking at, because it's not as defined as the other stitch rows on the other side. So this is our top stitch. So we're going to put that back underneath the presser foot. We're going to go right down the middle of the goalposts, which I will do as soon as I get the camera back on the tripod. Yeah, you can see those stitches they are just spot on. This is our top stitch again, which means that that bobbin case is just doing a fantastic job. This is the best angle to see them at right there, if my camera decides to stop moving. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay down another stitch layer. I'm going to bring up that upper tension just slightly, because this is a tricky, slippery material to sew with. It truly is. And we're going to see if we can get that center row to pop just a little bit more, like the other two rows for the top stitch. We'll see what impact we can bring. I always like to bring it up just a little bit as far as the level. You know what I mean? We could certainly accept this. It certainly is passable, but it's not quite up to our standards. Let's give it another try. I'm just going to bump up that upper tension just slightly. Let me get this underneath the presser foot now that I have two hands to work with. And we'll bump up our upper tension just slightly. And we'll give this another go. So what I did is I took it from right around 5 up to just below 6. And we'll see what we get this time as far as the definition of that lock stitch. All right, here we go. This stuff is trying to pull me left and right and upside down. All right, here we go. And hopefully we didn't take too much away from the top stitch. I may have gone just a little bit further than we needed to, but we'll see. We'll see. Oh boy, that is dramatically different. That is dramatically different. So the first thing, and right now we've got the, let me actually mark this so I don't get confused or turned around. So this is our top stitch. Put like a little kind of a messy looking T on there. This is our lock stitch. Put a little L on the back of there. Now if I get confused, we've got that as a Q point. Okay, so this is our top stitch. First thing we're going to look at is see how we did as far as not adversely affecting the top stitch. That's my biggest concern, is that you make an adjustment, you end up going a little bit too far, and then you solve one problem but you create another, if that makes sense. So we're going to see if we created another problem or if we adjusted it just enough that we're going to get a good top stitch and a balanced lock stitch. So there was our first row, which is just, I mean, it speaks for itself. It's just absolutely spot on. That row, see the top row and the bottom row? That top stitch is exactly as it should be. Now we're going to look at this other center row, and it looks like we may have gone a little bit too far. We're still getting some good definition, but it's just a little bit, yeah, there it is. Okay, it may be the angle. I take that back. I think we did a decent job. Let me take my hand off the camera for a second. So it's not nearly as pronounced as the top row and the bottom row if you look at them in totality. That center row that we just did after increasing our upper tension so we could define that lock stitch more, we still have a decent looking top stitch, but it's not as poppy as the top row and the bottom row. Actually, when I look at both sides of the material, we probably were a little bit over poppy on this top stitch on the upper row and the bottom row, and the middle one now is pretty close to where we would want it to be, but because it's so dramatically different than the top and bottom row, it almost looks like it's not defined enough. But I think we're pretty spot on. But the big factor that we wanted to try to impact is, what did we do for that lock stitch that's going to be in that center row now when we turn this material around? What do we do for that lock stitch? Here's my upside down L. Do we do anything? Do we have an impact on that lock stitch? Again, this is a very sheer, very slippery ribbon material. Super tricky to sew, super tricky. And what impact did we bring? So there's our, if we look at them in totality, there's our upper row, our bottom row, and then our center row. And look at how much better defined that lock stitch is with that very simple adjustment that we made. A simple little adjustment, taking it from 5 to just below 6. So we increased it about 3/4 to about 5 and 5.75 or somewhere in that realm. And the result, the impact is we took the outer lock stitch rows that were adequate. But now we've really defined that lock stitch. And again, we may have gone just a slight bit too far, but it just shows how you can control it and you can impact it. Because now we have a center row there that is our lock stitch that is clearly a lot more defined. And it was a simple adjustment that we made. Simple adjustment. So I do this so that you can see that if you're facing a challenge, if you're sewing a new material you've never sewn before, and you're having a struggle in trying to get that stitch balance the way you want it, a very subtle adjustment can sometimes take you from a point of frustration to a point of victory. And I think that's what we did here. We've got a much more poppy lock stitch, which again is going to be that's going to be more of our struggle point, because that thread is having to get sucked back up through that slippery material as it's feeding over those feed dogs. But now we've got what I would consider to be, we're in the ballpark. I wouldn't say we're home, but we're in the ballpark of getting a very nicely defined lock stitch, as you can see right now on camera. And at the same time, a top stitch that with a little bit more tweaking, this is our top stitch now, our top stitch that with a little bit more tweaking, we'd be able to get it just exactly spot on. So I would call this a success, and partly because we faced a little bit of a challenge. It's a totally different material. It's very slippery, it's very sheer, but with just a little bit of an adjustment on that upper tension, we were able to demonstrate an impact on this lock stitch on the other side. So I'm going to throw that to the back also as a pass, and we'll put on a little bit more music. So I'm going to, before I forget, I'm going to adjust that upper tension back a little bit again. And we're right around 5, probably about 5.25. Pretty close to that is where I'm going to leave it. I think that'll leave us in a good position for the remaining sew-offs that we have, which is heavy grade denim. And then also I've got another material. What the heck is this stuff? This is more of a cotton blend that I've got. I've got a cotton blend and a denim left that we're going to try to sew with this 201-2. And then we're going to finally jump over to Facebook. So this next one is called Muriel, which is also labeled Dance. Yeah, I'm believing it. Well, you've heard this machine run a lot, so I'm going to crank our music up a little bit. And if you don't like that, then oh well. All right, let's zoom back in on that needle. All right, let's do some heavy grade denim now. So I've got 2 layers right now. I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half, get us up to 4 layers, and then I'm going to fold it one more time to get us all the way up to 8 layers. That's what 8 layers of denim looks like right there. The craziness continues, folks. The craziness continues. was going to go down and around with this, and maybe I should. Yeah, well, why don't we? And off camera, I'm just going to increase that pressure foot pressure just slightly. All right, let's see how this 201-2 from 1937 does with 8 layers of heavy grade denim. Here we go. I hope I didn't bite off more than I can chew. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens as the music ends and there's total silence. Listen to this machine run. Here we go. If I get my foot all the way under foot control. Otherwise, it's a lot harder to listen to it, isn't it? Oops, 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 oops. Let's get that needle down, buddy. Needle down, my friend. All right, we're going to have a tight turn here, a real tight turn. All the way down. Let's get that thread out so I don't sew over my own thread, which I do regularly. All right, let's rotate it and come down to the finish. And I'm still debating whether I'll close the box or not. I don't know yet. Let's see what happens. Here we go. Okay, I'll close the box. I think I pretty much closed it. I think so. I think we pretty much closed that box. So this again is 8 layers of heavy grade denim that we just sewed. 8 layers. 8 layers of this stuff. We're going to look at that again, the thickness factor. Yeah, that last little loop I did, I kind of didn't finish off the seam. See if I can redeem that. Yeah, now we don't have a closed box. Okay, well that's okay. It's mostly closed. Kind of like virtually spotless. All right, let's take a look at these stitches. So this is our top stitch right here. I'm going to face that towards the camera first. First of all, I want to show you again what 8 layers of heavy grade denim looks like. 8 layers. 8 layers. Actually, that's a good side too. 8 layers. So our top stitch first, and then we'll look at that lock stitch. I think I can balance it here pretty well. Let's give that a try. I think so. So first of all, our top stitch through 8 layers of heavy grade denim. Let's take a look at this. We'll go across that top row first. Folks, I don't know what you're seeing, but what I'm seeing is, hold on a second, I got to spread these legs out on this camera a little bit more. I keep kind of tipping it a little bit as I'm going, so. All right, let's try that again. Now I got a more stable platform. So what I was about to say is, I don't know what you're seeing, but what I'm seeing is beautiful, beautiful stitch definition. As my friend Super B said from Las Vegas, I don't care what the machine looks like. I just want it to lay down a gorgeous stitch. That is gorgeous. Well, other than where I cut the, remember that little loop I was fighting a little bit with? Yeah, ignore that. But that is a gorgeous stitch, folks. And again, we're not talking about a light sew off. We're talking about 8 layers of heavy grade denim. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch. Yeah, exactly as we want to be seeing. Totality of the stitching, come out to right about there. Let's turn this around and look at the lock stitch. And you heard this machine running other than when I didn't get my foot all the way on the foot controller initially. It got the job done so easily. It's ridiculous. So easily. It went through 8 layers of heavy grade denim. It was like a light sew off for this 201-2. And again, this machine arrived barely turning. And there's our lock stitch. Yeah, I know. Those are beautiful stitches, folks. Top stitch and the lock stitch that we're looking at right now are just absolutely spot on. So I'm going to call this 8 layers of heavy grade denim also a pass. And let me just recap for you again real quick. I'll kind of come out on this shot. I'm going to recap for you again what we've already sewn, which I think is a lot. I mean, quite honestly, I think it's a lot. Let's come out and look at William Wessels 201-2 from a greater distance. Okay, let me recap what we've already sewn. We just did these 8 layers of heavy grade denim. Before that, we did this upholstery material. I believe that was 6 layers. 6 layers, this material that Maddie sent. It's commercial grade upholstery material. I got to turn my screen around. We did this upholstery. I'm sorry. If I said upholstery, blah, this is actually vinyl. Commercial grade vinyl. I apologize if I got that wrong. So again, 8 layers of heavy grade denim, 6 layers of commercial grade canvas is what I meant to say. I'll eventually get it right. 6 layers of commercial grade canvas right here on the top. Now we have upholstery material, and this I believe was 1, 2, 4 layers of upholstery material. We had 3 layers of this compressed felt. Then we had this acrylic fiber, 2 layers of that. We had this real slippery ribbon material that I've only tried sewing for the first time today during this live premiere. We had this cowhide, about 4 or 5 ounces of cowhide, and then last but certainly not least, we had these 2 layers of genuine alkyd, about 8 to 10 ounces of chemically processed leather. This is our sew-off sandwich that we've done during this live premiere today. That's our sew-off sandwich, as I like to refer to it. That is the proof in the pudding right there, folks, that William Wessels 201-2 is ready to get the job done. No matter what you're sewing, it doesn't matter. That's about as diverse of a field of sewing materials as you can possibly sew. And absolute success on every one of those. But we're going to do one more sew-off. Oh, and we did these as well. I talked about those a little bit, but we did protected full grain leather off camera. We did U.S. Army grade canvas, 6 layers of that off camera. Single layer of genuine alkyd off camera, and then also this cotton blend type material where we did just a huge range of stitches from teeny tiny, right around 25 to 30 stitches per inch, all the way up to about 6 stitches per inch at the maximum. So we covered the full scope of the stitch length of this 1937 201-2, and just, I mean, this little sew-off sandwich gave me the confidence that we were ready for this premiere. So we went from this off camera to this on camera. You're not going to see this anywhere else on YouTube. You're not going to see this anywhere else on the internet where someone has this level of confidence that they're going to shoot a live premiere with a sew-off sandwich like that, of that incredible scope of diverse sewing materials. I mean, we got everything pretty much represented here. And this was off camera, all of it on the same needle. I mean, that's saying something. Don't you agree? If you agree that this is the way that everyone should show the proof in the pudding that a machine is ready to get the job done, then type in the chat something like a thumbs up or whatever you want to type in there to signify, yeah, everyone should try to hit this standard. This is the gold standard. This is the way it's supposed to be done. Then type that into the chat if you would, please. It just reinforces for me that I'm not wasting my time, because I could do just a few sew-offs and send that machine off and get on to other machines a lot quicker if I were to cut the corners, but I don't think that's the way to do it. If you agree, type in the chat, showing something that you agree. And I'm going to go over this. I went over Williams paint and cleaned it up quite a bit. I kept getting more and more varnish off, more and more oil, but it's still not 100% of the way there, so I'm probably going to spend a little bit more time going over the paint. And this is, again, something that I do for the customer just as a part of my service. You're not going to get that if you go to a local sewing center. Let's just be realistic. You're not going to get that if you go to a local sewing center and you take that machine in for a full service and you say, oh, by the way, would you work on my cleaning up my paint patina as well while the machine is in there? They're going to show you the door in a heartbeat. Or they're going to give you a little smile like, yeah, you're on Minute Maid, man, that's not going to happen. But even as many cosmetic pads as I went over on Williams' machine to try to get some of this additional varnishing off, and you'll see in the Facebook shots as well, I was working on some nasty stickers that were on there as well. But it is a process that William will probably have to continue once his Rolls-Royce of Singers gets back to him in Avon Park, Florida. And he'll be able to put more dents in getting more of that varnish off. That's just from the little rubbing we just did on the bed. See that? And I could show you in the garbage can if I wanted to about 30 or 40 more of these that I've already used on Williams' machine and got the same results. So there's just a lot of varnishing and a lot of old built-up junk on the paint that I've put a dent in it, but there's probably more. There's definitely more opportunity. But you can see in that shot right there the impact that we've already had on the machine. She's looking a lot better. She's looking more like a Rolls-Royce of Singers. But again, with my trip down to Indiana and getting ready to take another trip pretty soon to another location in conjunction with my birthday, which is January 14th, by the way. So I share a very close birthday with my good friend Hans from Norway, and also with my friend Sonny. I think Bill's is somewhere else out there. We already celebrated Bill's a number of months ago, and I acknowledge that as well. But the three of us, Sonny and Hans and I, we all have pretty close birthdays in December and January. So again, yeah, if you want to light a candle on January 14th, that's my birthday. So, and we already celebrated Hans's birthday on January 4th. January 4th. Yeah. So that's all cool. That's all good. That's all fun. So our last sew-off for this Rolls-Royce of Singers is going to be a cotton blend. We're probably going to do about 6 layers of that as well. So let me see if I can find another song. This one is called Just Dance. And I'll turn the volume down so on this final sew-off you can really listen to Williams' machine. Okay? So this is called Just Dance. And I cranked it way down. So any of you fuss buckets out there that want to say, well, the music was too loud. Too loud, man. I don't think so. All right, let's zoom in on that needle and we'll look at this final sew-off here on Williams 201-2 from 1937. And again, this is just a cotton blend that we're going to be sewing. And I've already done the ribbon stuff to show you real thin, light sewing. So we'll probably do like 4 or 6 layers of this stuff. Here's 2 layers. fold it in the middle, get us up to 4. If I can fold it, get us up to 4. Fold it one more time, get us up to 6 layers of this cotton. It's kind of a cotton polyester blend is what we have right here. And this is also a material I just recently acquired. I like to try out new stuff, you know? Although I love my, you already know this, I love my alkyd a lot. All right, final sew off on William Wessels, 1937. Singer 201-2, the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines. We're going to sew off on this cotton blend material, 6 layers of it. But first of all, since we're looking right down here at the needle, I'm going to tell you a couple of quick things to help you out if you are just acquiring a 201-2. And that is, when you're setting this up to sew, focusing on the bobbin first. As you drop the bobbin in, you want to drop it in so that that bobbin is going to be turning clockwise, which means that that thread should be coming on underneath on the bottom of that bobbin as you drop it in so it turns clockwise. You're going to make sure that the flat side of the needle is facing to the left, and then you're going to thread this machine down at the needle from right to left, okay? So flat side to the left, thread right to left, and make sure that that bobbin, as it's unwinding, as it's turning in the raceway, that it's turning clockwise. And see, with all that gabbing that I just did, blah, 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 all of you people that were getting all up in arms, off screen, and going, doggone it, he's going to play music again during a sew-off. He's going to do it again! Now the music is done. See? So it's a win-win. Let's agree in this new year that we can agree to disagree agreeably, and we can still have a win-win, right? There's harmony in the workshop. There's harmony in the workshop. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. All right, here we go. Final sew-off. 6 layers of cotton blend. Here we go. Almost went too far again. I'm right on the edge. We're on the edge. We're on the edge. Down to the finish line with an open box. All right, here we go. The final sew-off. Cotton blend, 6 layers. I could hear that machine struggling to sew that. I think you're probably drinking way too much coffee, because this machine was just humming. Other than when I didn't get my foot all the way on the foot control on a couple of sew-offs, every single sew-off that we've done during this live premiere, this 201-2 got the job done just like a done. Hiccup, done. Hiccup, done. Hiccup, done. Absolute ease. And I'm going to hold this in place with my little sewing clipper thingies. All right, let's see what kind of stitches we got onto this. Final sew-off. 6 layers of cotton polyester blend. Kind of what we have here. Cotton polyester blend. Oh my goodness gravy. Yeah. I might not even look at these separately. We might just look at them together. Yeah, I think we will. Spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch is just absolutely as it should be. Okay, I'll zoom in on the top one now. And again, I mean, we're not talking, it's not super duper light. I mean, it's 6 layers, folks. 6 layers. Totality of the stitching. Yeah. All right, I'm going to take my hands off the camera so you can actually see it without me jiggling it. That's the totality of the stitching right there. That is a break-worthy top stitch through these 6 layers of cotton blend material. Let's turn it over and look at that lock stitch now, finally. Let's look at that lock stitch and just see, you know, some of the materials will play havoc a little bit with stitch balance, but I think we got a sweet spot right now. We're right about 5.25 on that upper tension, and I think that's going to be able to manage most materials beautifully. And as we start on that left column over there, that stitch is just spot on. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch. I'm going to go across the top now. Yep. Across the bottom row. This again is our lock stitch. Yeah. Well, as I've said before, we used to say I had to count my fingers real quick. There are 5 P's when it comes to prepping something for success. It can be a military mission, it can be a sew-off, or a series of sew-offs as we had during this live premiere. The 5 P's are: prior planning prevents poor performance. Prior planning prevents poor performance. The first one to type that into the chat, prior planning prevents poor performance, exactly like that, you reach out to me and I'm going to send you something special, because that is an important principle to remember. The 5 P's. So type the 5 P's, prior planning prevents poor performance. The 5 P's, prior planning prevents poor performance. Type it just like that. And if you're the first one to do it, I'm going to send you something special. The 5 P's, prior planning prevents poor performance. And you need to reach out. Let me know you were the first one to do it. We can verify that in the chat right now, and I will send you something special. But this is what prior performance guarantees in this workshop, is that we're going to get a top stitch like that through 6 layers of cotton blend, and we're going to get a lock stitch like that. So now, if I grab all of our materials, this is what our sew-off sandwich looks like now. I'm trying to get them balanced here. This is a sew-off sandwich. I'll try to keep this steady here. This is a sew-off sandwich of confidence right here. This is what we did during this live premiere today. There's nowhere else on YouTube or on the internet within the vintage space that you're going to see someone put a machine to this level of testing before it's allowed to leave the workshop and go out the door heading towards that customer. Nowhere else. I'm the only one in the world that pushes a machine to this extent with this field, this diverse field of materials of just a wide variety of thicknesses. Everything from genuine alkyd to acrylic fiber to you name it, all the stuff you've seen. And this 201-2 has passed the test majestically. It's done a brilliant job. It just has. But that all is because of the prior planning prevents poor performance. We don't want poor performance during a premiere. We can make little adjustments, we can do little tweaking to do that or to do whatever. That's not poor performance. That's fine-tuning based on this wide field of materials. But we never want to hit poor performance. We just don't want. We don't want that. Not in this workshop. And that's why the prior planning. So incredible success. Very, very pleased with this 1937 201-2, the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines. The same machine used by the Olivers in their mansion. The same machine from around 1948 to 1952 that sewed the interior leather panels of the Rolls-Royce car. And if you've never heard that before, then you can go back almost 10 years. I believe it is 10 years now where I made that announcement for the first time. And now everyone in the 126 countries that follow this channel, everyone is using that same language when they're talking about a 201-2. Everyone now is saying the Rolls-Royce of singers. That started here. That started in this workshop. And it's because we try to always improve what we do in every aspect. And that includes the educational aspect as well, to let people know what they're dealing with, what they have. All right, let's get over to Facebook at last as we look at this cute little lady holding that 11-pound featherweight. She is so strong. Look at her. She's buffed. Yeah. She's flexing. Quick, put it down. You're going to pull a muscle. Featherweight portable. Oh, okay. For featherweight portable. So now we're looking at a 222K. We were before, that lady was holding a 221. Now we're looking at a 222K. Because that was called a convertible or a portable. The featherweight convertible portable 222K. Blah, blah, blah. Now we're back to the same lady, and she's showing her 221. Yeah. All right. She's shown us enough. So let's look at this first set of photos, which hopefully will still load after waiting this long for us to get to it. I hope so anyway. At last. That was scary for a second there, wasn't it? So this is our first set of photos. I'm going to kind of zoom in on them a little bit. And what you're going to see me doing is a variety of different things to William Wessels 201-2. Everything from trying to do some cleanup on the paint to, shut off this light temporarily, doing cleanup on the paint to intense servicing and adjustments and maintenance on the machine as well. So, and we've got 4 sets of these, so I'll try to be fairly steady in going through them. So there's some paint cleanup that we're doing there. Come on. We're waiting for you. I'm going to refresh these others while we're looking at this one so that hopefully these will be ready by the time we get to them. Close that. Okay, so I'm just showing you here as we've gone over the initial wipe down of this 1937 201-2, getting a lot of junk off of that cosmetic pad, which is actually off screen right now. So let me adjust that a little bit. But it just goes to show you, I mean, it takes decades. It takes literally decades for all of this stuff to build up on the paint, so it takes a long time to take that layer by layer by layer by layer by layer down without potentially compromising, compromising or damaging the paint or the filigree. So I'm just showing you that how surgically I go through a machine. Here I'm using one of my dental tools, and on that stitch length lever, I'm reaching deep into the machine to remove the varnishing and that's on that chromed piece. Everything is done at a very deep level on the machines. Here we're starting to remove some of the varnishing off of that chrome, just because that is a focus point. It's right above the badge mark and you want to get it nice and clean. Also, you eliminate it so that it'll allow that lever to work more freely. Here we're working on the stitch boundary screw that has a lot of varnishing on it as well. And there is a stitch boundary screw on the left and the lever on the right that are now properly restored and cleaned and are operating as they should. there's a real nasty upper tension. And the upper tension, again, is absolutely critical. It defines what happens to that lock stitch. And at this stage right now, from not just from the outside, but on the inside as well, it is so filthy, so gummed up, so disgusting, it's not able to function as it's designed to do. Look at that inside. Gives you an idea of just how far gone this machine was, where you literally have that varnishing caked inside of there as we're starting to disassemble this upper tension. There as well, you can look along the base plate of this. This is all part of the upper tension assembly, and it's just caked in everything from varnishing to grime to dirt to, I mean, it's filthy. It's absolutely filthy. You can see it from the side as well on this rear plate that's adjacent to the body of the machine. At the top of here as well, you can see it just caked on in the shot. It's in a real bad state right now, which means that when this machine was trying to stitch, you're getting thread breaks, you were getting everything else going on with the machine because it wasn't allowing that thread to pass through there. That's Dr. Singer's look of surprise, almost disgust, over how filthy one of his machines are. And there you're just looking at, again, all of this filth. That's supposed to be a chromed section right here all the way around the mounting point of this upper tension, and it's caramelized, it's veneered, it's junked up, it's grimed up, it's greased up. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. So there are our components of the upper tension. We're beginning to focus on those because, again, if the upper tension is not working and isn't clean and isn't lubricated in the areas that it needs to be lubricated and stripped down to bare metal in other areas where it shouldn't have any lubricant on it, it's not going to be able to function. It's not going to be able to define that lock stitch. It's not going to be able to work in concert with that bobbin and bobbin case and raceway area below. We're starting to make a dent in it. We're starting to get that stuff cleaned up. That shows you how busy the workbench gets while I'm working on a project like this. There's 2 or 3 things happening simultaneously as I'm restoring that machine back to a position where it's going to be operating better than when it left the factory. Because I'm devoting extra time to areas that they have to rush through as they're building that Rolls-Royce of Singers at the factory. And that's obviously a shot of a Rolls-Royce. And it's sitting on top of what? Type in the chat if you know what that Rolls-Royce is sitting on top of. And why is that significant, what that Rolls-Royce is sitting on top of? What's coming up soon that will involve that thing that the Rolls-Royce is sitting on top of? Boy, oh boy, could I be any more clear, any more evident? So type it in the chat, and if you're the first one to type it in the chat, I'll probably, if you reach out, I'll send you something special just for stepping out of the shadows and voicing that knowledge of what is significant about, obviously, what is a brick underneath that Rolls-Royce of Singers. Or in this case, the Rolls-Royce. So here we're looking at the faceplate area. A lot of varnishing, a lot of buildup. You can even see some rust in here as well, adjacent to that needle bar. And all of that needs to be mitigated. All of it needs to be mitigated because it's holding the machine back. And that's what it should look like when it's properly restored. And it's not a matter of just cleaning the junk off. It's also a matter of making adjustments and also lubricating the critical areas that are in that faceplate area. 15 to 20 spots in that faceplate need to receive proper lubrication so that the machine is optimized. Now that is not how the needle bar, and that's actually the outer sheathing around the needle bar on the top there, and then also the presser foot bar. That's not how they're supposed to look. That is nasty. Nasty, nasty, nasty is what that is. And a combination of that is varnishing, dirt, and also some rust as well. So now we're starting to chip away at it, just like when you go to the dentist. Layer by layer of that, the equivalent of a plaque is going to be removed from those areas so that it's gone. And it's a process. It takes quite a few stages to get that all the way down. Again, it's been building up for decades. It's been hardening. It's like plaque. It's been getting a resilience about it. But we're going to win in the end. You can see the impact that we made on this front needle bar, the sheathing as well around the needle shaft, and a huge impact. Now we're going to focus on the rear presser foot bar and presser foot assembly. And that's what that area should look like. Although, if you look real close, you notice that we did not deal with the presser foot attachment yet. It still has gunk and junk on it as well. If you look real close, and we're going to deal with that next. See that? Now we're focusing on the raceway and the feed dog area. That is a combination of junk and rust. Lots of rust on those right now. Can you see that in the shot? A lot of rust on this machine. Wherever it was stored, wherever it was kept, the machine picked up a lot of rust in the process. And there's a raceway that's starting to clean up properly. And that serves on the 201-2, that serves not only as a raceway area, but it also is combined with the bobbin case as well. It's all one unit. And it's the brain center of the machine. It's where the magic happens. It's where the stitch is created. And there again, you can see the busyness of the workbench. We've got an upper tension that we're tearing down. We're taking off feed dogs. We're digging into the raceway area. There's a multitude of things that are happening all at the same time. And again, that comes with experience. I'm able to do that without losing track of where I'm at. But here again, you can see just how much attention this area needs. You can see all the filth and the buildup and the rust. Of course, my friends show up and want to survey the field of damage as opposed to the field of dreams, where we eventually will reach once my process is complete. Getting a drink of water if you want to get a drink of water as well. But you can see Dr. Singer is really kind of studying that. He's not used to seeing a machine, especially a Rolls-Royce of Singer's. He's not used to seeing a machine that is in this poor of a state, in this poor of condition. So all the guys, Herr Obermeister, Mr. Bean, all of them are looking on like, wow. But we're taking it a step at a time and dealing with it. You know what I mean? So that's the end of the first set of pictures right there. Now we're going to go on to the next set. So here's a more distant shot of the 201-2. You can see right on the pillar on the inside there is a nasty sticker that some audacious, ridiculous sewing center decided it had to slap on there, on this Rolls-Royce of Singer's. Right there you can see it, just adjacent to the badge mark. I still don't get why sewing centers do that. I mean, if the customer likes what you did, if they're satisfied with your service, you don't have to stick a nasty metallic sticker in a conspicuous place on the machine to remind them about who did the service. All they're going to be reminded of is the obnoxious service center that stuck a sticker on their Rolls-Royce of Singer's. That's what they're going to remember. That's why I don't do it. So here, what I discovered when I was testing the power of the initial machine, and also I was trying to inspect and validate that the wiring was adequate and that all the connections were complete, and insulating wires as well, as I always do. I was getting an irregular response from the foot controller when I would push on it. Sometimes you would get a good response, sometimes the light would flicker, and I thought, I've got to eliminate and do a bypass to isolate it to see if it's something internal to the machine, or whether or not it may be something as simple as a break in the wiring on the cord that plugs into the place that we're bypassing it on right now. And when I connected it like this, I got a solid response from the motor, I got a solid response and a steady light on the machine. So it told me that internally, and obviously I dug deeper to check all of the wiring as well, and you'll see me removing off the light assembly on the front of the 201-2 as well. So all of that was verified eventually, and I was satisfied that the machine was sound, and then determined that there was a short in the cord and ended up replacing the cord. This is actually the old cord right here, which you can see I've stuck a label on it for the customer, and I'll be happy to send it back that this was defective. And from the outside, it's an original Singer one. It's not an aftermarket one. From the outside, it looks pretty doggone good. But again, as this flexes and bends back and forth, you can either get a break right in here where it joins up. You can also get these copper contacts inside of here that degrade as well inside of the plug-in point itself. And then also on this end as well, that flexes where it plugs into the power source. But I was not going to send this machine back with a faulty cord where sometimes it would work beautifully, sometimes it wouldn't. And as evidenced by the premiere today, you can see that she was just spot on from start to finish. So she's a happy 201-2 again. So that's just a bypass method that I used again to take the cord out of the equation and eventually determine that the cord was the issue. Here I'm just checking the flow of electricity through those different connecting points, making sure that it's solid, that it's consistent. And with the old cord, I was getting a flux on it, which you're not supposed to get. With the new cord, it was steady and true. And it's hard to see in this shot, but the first shot showed my tester with no power feed. The second one shows it with a steady red light, which indicates that the power feed is steady and true. Here I put in a replacement LED light for William, and also I'm checking the wiring as well that comes through the body of the machine past the pillar and then eventually out to this exit point where it connects to the light assembly. All of that has to be inspected, and also has to be cleaned as well. Behind there, there's a lot of oil and stuff that builds up behind there, and again, if you leave oil or dirt on the machine, it's going to migrate to other parts of the machine, including the motor, and we don't want that to happen. So you have to remove as much as you can to dig into the machine to get all of that oil, grease, and in many cases rust off as well. Here again, we're just inspecting that area, making sure that it's clean and that the wiring is sound. And it's a distant shot. The Rolls-Royce has decided to jump up on the Rolls-Royce and, to highlight the fact, hey, we're making progress. This is good. And again, you can see the light assembly is still separated from the body. I'm doing some final tests on it. And the socket well for the light itself has probably almost a dozen service points because of the copper that comprises that, and it has to be broken down and cleaned and get all that varnishing off of those copper points. Not just the contacts that touch the bulb, but there's deeper things inside of there as well that I didn't photograph. Not only varnishing, but if you look down into that well where the bulb does connect, you can also see there's rust on there as well. Yeah, you can see that in the shot. That's all rust. So there's a special solvent that is safe for electronics and for electrical components that I'm using to try to flood that area to mitigate the rust, and then also to scrape it down with dental tools and to swab it out with Q-tip swabs as well. The other thing I noticed is that at some point that bulb had gotten super hot, and this is supposed to be a reflective field right here on the light assembly that pushes that light back down to the bed and to the needle, and you can see it's scorched right here. It's scorched on the bottom, and it's incredibly faded up here to a point where this reflective field is really doing nothing at all to enhance the lighting on the bed for the machine and for the sewer. So that has to be dealt with as well. Again, number one, they would never take this light assembly off of the machine if you took it into a standard service center. Secondly, they would never ever take the time to deal with this reflective issue. If the light comes on and off, that's good enough for them. I'm just saying it like it is, folks. But at this workshop, that is not even close to the standard that I follow here when I take a machine through my process. So we got to deal with it. It takes more time, but that's okay. So here I'm going to be painting this area. So I've got to mask off the areas around the light assembly, which is black. And we're obviously going to be applying an oil resistant, high heat resistant type of lacquer covering to this, as it would have been done originally at the factory, so that that's going to reflect that light back down well and also resist the heat. Even though we're using an LED bulb, LED bulbs put out only a fraction of the heat that an incandescent type bulb does, but they still put out some heat. So we're going to be using I'm going to be using a coating on there that's going to reflect the light beautifully. It's going to resist against oil. It's going to resist against heat. There again is where we're starting. That's a close-up of what we have to deal with. Now using a paintbrush, I'm starting to apply the coats of this special oil heat resistant and reflective material. Does that look different? Type in the chat if that looks different from, okay, this is what we have now compared to that's before. That's after. Why do people take the time to pack up a machine to send it all the way to the workshop in Wisconsin? This is an example. The level and depth of the servicing that I do to the machine, it's so much more than what other service centers would ever try to take on, and wouldn't even probably know what to do, to be perfectly honest. But now William is going to have not only the brand new LED bulb in there, but this reflective shield is going to be pushing that light back down and giving him incredible visibility down at the needle and on the bed. If you didn't type in the chat yet, type in the chat whether or not you think that that looks different. That again is the after. This is the before. That is the after. What a difference. What a huge difference. Just showing you from different angles. And those dirty swabs are part of the cleaning that I did inside of the well itself, where the bulb eventually will go in. More cleaning, more servicing, more servicing. Oh, I see. I'm holding the bulb right there. The bulb assembly, the light assembly. Just close-up shot of our bypass. What a difference, huh? No one else in the world that I've ever met goes to this surgical level on a machine when it comes in for, this machine came in for a service, for a tune-up. And these are all the things well beyond the scope of what other service centers do that I do to it. And I'm not trying to sound braggadocious. I'm just trying to say this is the difference, folks. This is the difference. And I've resolved in this new year of 2021 to go even deeper into the machines than I already am. Now there's a beautiful shot of that light assembly as it should be. That reflective field is set up beautifully to push that light back down. Everything is clean. Everything is verified as far as the wiring being in good condition and being fully serviceable. So I mean, this is the way every service center should do it, but they can't. They'd go out of business. They'd go into business because this process from start to finish on William Wessels 201-2 was about 27 hours. 27 hours. That's like 60 times more time than the average service center would spend doing a basic service on the machine. 60 times more time. And just a lot of caramelization, a lot of veneering built up on the paint. Still even now, there's more to mitigate. But I'm trying to get at least those initial layers down so that if William decides to tackle that when the machine gets back to him in Avon Park, Florida, he'll be able to do that. Can you see that swab? It just gives you an idea. And that is not paint. That's not paint coming off. That's veneering and dirt. Gives you an idea of just how filthy this machine is. I love machines with character, but I do not like machines that are filthy. That machine should be as clean as possible. And there's that nasty sticker. There's that nasty sticker that these knuckleheads put on this machine at some point. And I believe the sticker does say it's from Florida, so it was probably somebody down in, wasn't it? Yeah. Something Beach, Florida. What does that say? Y'all know that Florida, you know, there's the phone number if you want to call these people. They're probably out of business. Maybe it's Palm Beach, Florida. That's a place in Florida, isn't it? Tell how much I know about Florida. Maybe it's Palm Beach, Florida is where these sewing people were. They definitely felt that they were more important than the beauty of the machine, because I just thought that was ugly, ugly, ugly. Stuck right on the pillar there. So I'm using a special paint safe solvent that breaks down the gummy adhesive on there. So when I remove it, the biggest concern when you're removing a sticker like this from a machine it's been sitting on there for a long, long time, is that when you try to peel it back or you try to remove it, that you're going to damage the paint. You're going to peel paint away with it. So this solvent helps to loosen that adhesive before I try to pull that that sticker away so that it's less likely to damage the paint. That's our goal. See that? All the paint is intact, and we're even removing a lot of the gumminess as the sticker's being removed, so there's less to do afterwards. Doesn't that look better? Now you're not focused on that gaudy, ridiculous sticker on the pillar. You're looking at the pillar and you're looking adjacent to that beautiful badge mark. That's where the focus should be, not on this sewing center that felt that they had to step in front of the beauty of the machine. That's just unacceptable. I agree, Dr. Singer. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Put it on the, I mean, if you just feel this compulsion, if you're OCD or whatever, and I've got to stick a sticker on here, stick it on the back of the pillar. Stick it on in a more, remote area of the machine where it's not going to be stealing the beauty of the machine away. Doesn't that look better? Big difference. Big difference. And again, you are not going to get that at a sewing center. It's not going to happen. Now that we've got the sticker off and we've gotten the gumminess off, now we're going to attack the varnishing that was underneath that as well. And you can see the varnishing coming off on that cosmetic pad. Now the next thing that I noticed when I was starting to focus on this machine in depth is it's really hard to read the serial number on this machine because there was so much varnishing and buildup on that serial number plate right here that it was making it really tough to read that serial number. And that's not the way it looked when it left the factory back in 1937. That's not the way it looked. So we need to get it back to the point of where it was when it left the factory in 1937. And that's step by step by step by step. Just alone on that serial number plate, I spent as much time as most sewing centers spend on a complete service on the machine. I spent about 30 to 45 minutes getting it to a point where you'll see in the end of how it looks then as opposed to how it looks now. Also focused on that spool pin for winding a bobbin. There was rust on there and varnishing. And you'll notice I create a little bit of a pad between the bed and the bottom of the spool pin with painter's tape because I want to protect if that dental tool somehow slips, if I'm working down the bottom of that spool pin, I want to have a buffer there so I don't scratch the paint. And then we're starting to make progress. That spool pin is starting to look really good. It's got a nice chrome finish to it again. It doesn't have veneering, it doesn't have rust, it doesn't have junk on it. Now this is the little well right here that is adjacent to the tensioner that allows you to wind a bobbin. There's a well underneath there if you didn't know that, and that's where a lot of junk builds up. And it's important that that well is clean because it should be clean. But beyond that, if you need to adjust that tensioner as you're winding a bobbin, if you find that as that thread is being distributed on the bobbin, it's more heavily concentrated on the left. That's the whole purpose of that well slider area, is you're able to slide that tensioner left or right so that you can compensate for when that bobbin is being wound, you can compensate for how that thread is being distributed. It's a fine tuner. It's a fine tuner. If you're getting a heavier concentration on the left, then you slowly move, you loosen that screw and you slowly move that tensioner to the right until you get that sweet spot where that thread is being moved back and forth evenly and it's being distributed evenly so that you don't get an uneven wind on that bobbin. Because then if you stick it into that bobbin case raceway area, you're going to have issues with uneven stitches, you're going to have thread breaking and all kinds of other things that are essential to the operation of the machine. So even something like this, if someone says, well, Scott, you're going too far. Come on, man, really? Yeah, really, because this is a critical point of setting the machine up for success when you're winding the bobbin and having that track nice and clean so that you can adjust it and get that sweet spot so you get a very even distribution of thread on that bobbin that's going to be put into that machine. Everything is critical. Everything is essential that I do. And then we're starting to make a headway on getting that track nice and clean for that thread tensioner. We're lubricating the threads on the bolt that's going to go back in there. Everything is serviced. You can see the junk we're getting on that Q-tip swab that otherwise would be in that track. Actually, you're not seeing it because the camera was set too low. And again, as in-depth as I'm showing you on Williams 201-2 right now, I think I have 150 shots that I'm sharing with you between these four groups of photos. This is about 1/5 of the service steps that I took this machine through. 1/5. So just gives you an idea of how in-depth my process is. Now I'm back to that serial plate again. The serial number plate on this 201-2. Had to take a little bit of a break from it because it's very tedious work chipping away at that stuff like a plaque with that dental tool. But we're back at it again now and we're starting to make some progress. You can start to see the original kind of almost a nickel finish on there that's starting to show up again. Look at it down the line here. This area we have not impacted. This area down here where you can see my dental tool, we have impacted. And it's dramatic. It's dramatic. It's almost shocking, the difference between the two. See that? Over here you can start to see those numbers popping back through beautifully. Over here you can just see how cruddied up they are and how dirty they are. And the thing you have to be careful about when you're doing a restoration on this serial number plate is you can see that when it's done at the factory, to make those numbers more easily read, they have a black lacquer fill on the inside of the number. Can you see that? The 5 and the 8. When you restore it, you've got to, if you're using chemicals or something like that, you do not want to use caustic chemicals, and you don't want to go freewheeling on it with some sort of a wire brush or something, because you're going to end up stripping that paint out of there as well, and you're going to get done. The plate's going to be nice and clean, but the numbers are not going to be easy to read, because that black inlay that's done at the factory is going to be removed. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, just type in the chat, got it, or thumbs up or something like that, so I know that you understand how careful you need to be in restoring a serial number plate on a machine like this. You got to be incredibly careful. It's more of a distant shot. You can see me with my little magnifier glasses on. This is my face kind of leaning into the machine right there, and I'm magnifying it probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 times normal magnification, so that I can really, again, I want to make sure that whatever I'm restoring, that I'm not restoring something and damaging something at the same time, which is what a lot of folks do. So, and those magnifier glasses that I use are something that you can buy, on eBay. You can buy them in other places like that as well. Here we're starting to really make an impact. That original finish on that serial number plate is starting to really become evident. The numbers are so much easier to read, and we're restoring it in with a conservative type approach, so that we're not damaging that black inlay on the letters at the same time. Now we can read 681, 589 very easily. And before we, even with real sharp eyes, even with magnification, it was so much harder to read those numbers. Now we can look at them and go, yeah, those are easy to read. But now we have to concentrate on the letters so that we can read the entire serial number. Which, if you look up that serial number again, if you haven't done it yet, you'll find out that this machine was born in 1937, but specifically September 22nd, 1937. But again, the process from this end to eventually getting done with this serial plate took me as long as the average service center is going to take on your machine if you take it to your mom and pop type store in your hometown. They're going to spend about 30 to 45 minutes on your machine. That's how long it took just to do this serial plate properly, so that it wasn't damaged in the process. And the entire process on this machine was about 26 hours. Isn't that looking different? Isn't that looking better? Isn't that a lot easier to read? So much easier to read, oh my gosh. Night and day, day and night. And again, if you took that to your service center, they wouldn't even take a hiccup at that. They wouldn't even take a look at it. Wouldn't happen. So now we're concentrating a little bit more on the paint again. We've gotten a lot of those areas cleaned up. Dr. Singer now, instead of looking perplexed and concerned and nearly upset, is looking a lot happier, isn't he? He's looking a lot happier. So that is that set of photos, I'm pleased to say. 2 more to go. And again, this is a fraction of the steps that I took Williams 201-2 through. So if you're only a YouTuber and you're going, holy cow, this is what Scott shows on the Facebook page? This is what we're missing? Yep, this is what you're missing. So here now we're focused on the upper tension components. And again, the thing to understand about the upper tension components is that some of them need to be stripped, some of them need to be lubricated, and lubricated with different agents, different solvents. And it's hard to see in the shot a little bit, but this plate up here that I explained to you was covered in rust and varnishing is now visible again, and you can see that natural nickel type finish on it right up here by Herr Obermeister. You see how much different that looks up there too? If you remember what it looks like. Thanks for your help, Herr Obermeister. Thanks. Well, you didn't do anything, Mr. Bean, but whatever. But you're a good dancer most of the time. We wouldn't give Mr. Bean a hard time if we didn't love him, right? He is what he is. Yes, I go through a lot of Q-tips, obviously. A lot of Q-tips in my process. You can see Dr. Bean, Mr. Bean, and Herr Obermeister. Dr. Singer's kind of retreated to the back a little bit. But they're all focused now on helping out as much as they can. I've got a good crew. Got a good crew. Don't you love that look on his face? That is absolute raw determination. Kind of like, we're going to get this done. We're going to get this done. It's going to happen. Mr. Bean there picked up some dirty Q-tip swabs, pretending like he cleaned, but we know that he didn't. But he's still a team player. He's still holding the dirty swabs, and he's going, yep, we can do this. Come on, boys, work harder. There, Herr Obermeister holding a Q-tip swab. Didn't know he could do that, did you? Uh-huh. And he's getting ready to swab some more of those areas. I believe at this point we've already gotten all the rust off, we've gotten all the varnishing off, and what he's going to be doing is applying a lubricant to some of the essential areas of that presser foot bar and spring area. Yep, I think that's what he's doing. And he just piped up. He just said off camera, he said, yeah, this is richtig. Yeah, this is correct. You're correct, Scott. You see how dirty his swab is, I think, in the shot? So even putting on that lubricant, he got more of that oily residue and varnishing that was still trying to stick to the machine. Still trying to stick to the machine. There's Reggie White jumping into things. And he's got part of the upper tension that he's holding as we're getting ready to clean it. He's got the inside spring. He's got another plate retainer there that holds the spring. Captain Smith is on the back of the Rolls-Royce. And all the boys are just kind of into the scene there, checking things out. Never can tell if Captain Smith is happy or on the edge of going crazy, or Brooklyn or something like that. Yeah, he's a hard one to peg down, isn't he? Good thing he doesn't have a peg leg, or I'd probably get some nasty notes about that one. So, yeah, Captain Smith. Captain Smith, the guy that sold me the little house that's on the workbench. So all the boys are kind of just combination of checking things out. Herr Obermeister is working still on that faceplate area. And Mr. Bean is just hanging out. And that is a special, it's a soft wire type broom brush that Herr Obermeister is holding there that he's going to use to remove a little bit more of the varnishing from some of the upper tension components. Reggie there has gotten into things, and he's going to lubricate one of the areas way in the back part of the faceplate area. You can see I already used the other side. Again, you don't put lubricant, you don't put grease on a dirty surface. You can see on that end closest to his hand, he's already cleaned the surface, and on the other side he's got a lubricating solvent to lubricate the area that he just stripped the yucky stuff off of. He's a pretty hard worker. He's a pretty hard worker. Plays hard when he was with the Packers, and now he's working hard in the workshop. So I appreciate him a lot. You can learn something from him, Mr. Bean. You can learn something. And here he's just being real detailed about hitting some of the critical lubrication spots inside of that faceplate area. There's Dr. Singer's niece and nephew just kind of checking things out. And Mr. Bean is kind of in the middle of them. Towards the back there, you can see him kind of poking his face through. And just the busyness of the work bench again. But here we're kind of having a little mini celebration. We've got more to do. Dr. Singer has come back out. The boys and everything are all pumped up and excited as things are being finalized. Herr Obermeister is just almost off camera over there. He's got that little brush that he used as well, along with his dental tool. And you can see also on the scene now is the really cool Singer car that my dear friend, stop moving, that my dear friend Roz sent me from out in Michigan. Remember, she sent me a cool Singer cast type car and then also a Pfaff car as well, both of which came from England. And since this is a Singer sewing machine, the Singer decided to come out and kind of go head to head with the Rolls-Royce and say, hey, we're all on this together. We're all working together here. Yeah. Yeah. That's a cool shot, everybody. Kind of celebrating. We're not done yet, though. We got a lot more to do. They didn't realize that. Closer shot of Herr Obermeister with his dental tool. There's Mr. Bean being Mr. Bean. And just more shots. I like to show the boys involved in the process. Herr Obermeister does not have a fear of heights. You can see him on the top of the machine there, leaning over. Reggie's doing something to the faceplate. Oh, okay, he's doing some work on the faceplate area. And Herr Obermeister is up there kind of looking down, checking things out. And I think he's also holding, he's holding the faceplate steady as well, because you can see right now we do not have the retaining bolt, decorative bolt that holds the faceplate at the bottom on the 201-2. So they're both making sure that that faceplate doesn't somehow fall off. Yeah, good job, guys. Good job. And Mr. Bean is just being Mr. Bean. Yeah. Yeah, that's him. Okay. Captain Smith came over and is kind of checking things out as well. He's just off camera there. He must be, he's checking the alignment. He must be checking the alignment that Reggie is doing with the bottom of the faceplate. Yep, that's what he's doing. He's making sure that the boys get it lined up correctly. Yeah. And now Herr Obermeister is putting in that set bolt to hold that faceplate securely. It also looks like the boys did some shining up on that faceplate as well. You can really see those decorative lines popping through nicely now. They're real clear. And the beauty of that faceplate is really starting to evidence itself. And another celebration. The boys are always ready to celebrate, which I think is great. They sometimes celebrate a little bit prematurely, but you know what? Better early than not at all. Reggie on the left. We still have some Q-tips left. It's amazing. And Herr Obermeister with the dental tool. And I think what he's focused on now is the fact that that presser foot attachment still has not been cleaned properly. I think Mr. Bean pointed that out to him. And so he's going to go after and make sure that we get that presser foot attachment cleaned up as well, along with the set bolt that holds it on. All the boys are involved in something, staying busy. Look at that. Look at that. That is a big difference. I think that's after he got in all those little nooks and crannies. Let's just zoom in on that real quick and take a look. Oh yeah, that's a difference. Great job, Herr Obermeister. Great job. Sehr gut. Sehr gut. Fantastisch. Fantastisch. Yeah. All right. Well done. Well done. Well done. Ah, Reggie. Reggie is going after some more of that varnishing on the paint, using a cosmetic pad and a paint safe type solvent to break down that varnishing, get all that junk off of there. Yeah, Dr. Singer's kind of just checking out what Reggie's doing. Doing a good job, Reggie. Well done. That's hard work too. Oh wow, look at all that stuff you got there, bud. How are you holding that? I didn't know your hands opened. That's pretty jazzy. Yeah, kind of see if we zoom in a little bit. Gives you an idea of just how filthy this machine was. Still not 100%, but a lot better than it was. Ah, okay. Now we're moving over to the balance wheel area. Herr Obermeister's on top, as you can see. And we're going to be taking off that balance wheel. And we're going to be starting to focus on some of the motor issues that we have, of which there are many. In part, and to a great extent, because the wrong lubricant was used on this 201-2. As I said before, there was an axle type grease used that's very caustic instead of a proper lubricant. It looks like Reggie is holding, that is incredible, you're balancing that like that. He's holding the actual clutch retainer that holds the balance wheel on, then he's got the clutch itself right there on his other arm. He's a strong dude. A very strong guy. Okay, we've got the balance wheel off, and Herr Obermeister's looking at how filthy it is. Yep, that's what he's doing, I think, down there. Looking inside of it as well. Ugh. Yuck. And I wish you could have smelled the odor that was coming out of this balance wheel area from this improper grease that was put inside of this machine and had also seeped into the motor, as you'll see as well, and had gotten into a lot of the other parts of the machine. It's a horrible odor. It's fine if it's in your CV boot on the bottom of the car, but you do not want to be using this type of grease. Whoever pumped this machine full of this axle type grease, it was a really dumb move. Really dumb move. Sir, Herr Obermeister, being the go-getter that he is, he's starting to go after this axle grease stuff, starting with the balance wheel. And it's just a step-by-step process. You can really see it build up right around here as well. I think you can if I zoom in on it. This is an example of somebody thinking that they had to grease this area. This is actually an area that should not be greased. in part because you can see the worm gear interlacing there that goes directly into the worm gear interlacing that comes off of the motor. And all this grease was getting in there and causing that Teflon type material to break down and also slip. So I say it all the time, certain parts have to be stripped, other parts have to be oiled, other parts have to be greased. And this is an example of someone not knowing that they were using the wrong application for that area of the machine and using the wrong type of grease as well. That odor, I just can't get that odor out of my mind. It's just an awful smell. And you can see we're getting some of it cleaned up there. Reggie's holding it all over that paper towel. Starting to get some of that area cleaned up and then take it through the proper process instead of the improper process like someone did. I don't know if William did it or someone, maybe William hired to work on the machine. I have no idea. There you can really get in. Look at that Q-tip swab that Herr Obermeister is holding there. There you can really see it clearly. Certain greases are incredibly harmful to a sewing machine. I can't remember who I was in a little bit of during a live premiere, there was some guy that chimed in and was talking about using some sort of a lubricant on his machines, and I told him that had acetone and other things in it. It was not a safe thing to be using. I think he just rejected that and left the chat, but I can't emphasize enough, you've got to be really careful what you use. Do not use WD-40, do not use 3-in-1 oils, that sort of thing. Do not use the tri-flow type oils. Those are not good things to be using on your machine. Herr Obermeister, are you getting ready to do what I think you're going to do? Really? Mr. Bean, you have no idea what's coming there, buddy. I think he's getting ready to give you a whack in the nose for being so lazy. He's going to whack you with that nasty grease. I'm pretty sure. Yep, that's what he did. Yep, that's exactly what he did. Ugh. I hope we get that off soon. It's probably going to eat your skin, plastic, whatever. Here, Obermeister, you got spunk. I think you got the message. You might see Mr. Bean working harder now. You might not. Actually, doesn't look bad on him, actually. Oh, geez. I've never seen the boys wrestle. Mr. Bean did not take that well. The boys are kind of going at it a little bit. They're getting a little bit of Brooklyn. They're going Brooklyn on each other. All right, guys, break it up, break it up. And the way that fight ended, that little tussle between the Herr Obermeister and Mr. Bean, is Reggie picked them both up, as you can see, and he said, enough is enough. Good job, Reggie. Oh, and Mr. Bean got his nose clean too. Yay. So if you think the boys are mild-mannered, they get a little bit crazy sometimes. They're like boys. Kind of like Skylar explained when we went through the mansion. If you didn't see that premiere, you missed a lot. But she explains that there's one room that we're looking in, and there's a picture of a boy and a girl, and the boy is wearing pink, and the girl is wearing blue. And Skylar explains that back in the day, boys were wearing more of the reds and the pinks because it was indicative of their fiery nature as boys. and the girls were wearing more of the blues because it was more representative of their calm, their placidness as a girl. They were more contrite, more conformed, and less fiery. And then she said there was some sort of an article published or whatever, and then they flipped it the other way, and all of a sudden boys were supposed to be wearing blue and girls were supposed to be wearing pink and red, etc. So doggone magazines or whatever it was, yeah. So here we just continue to plug away. Reggie's got part of the clutch control there. Captain is there checking things out. Reggie is using, looks like some tweezers and other things like that. Harold Burmeister is kind of checking things out from above as well to make sure that everything's being done properly. Starting to deal with that nasty axle grease junk that was put inside of the machine. You see these are just soaked in that material. The boys are making some good headway in getting that cleaned out. Harold Burmeister has a Q-tip swab just soaked in that stuff right there. Reggie's declaring victory over the nasty, contaminated, junky, caustic axle grease junk that was pumped inside of the machine. And Harold Burmeister just continued to plug away on it. And here I'm showing Dr. Singer. Dr. Singer came over and I'm showing him some of this nasty caustic grease on the end of a Q-tip swab. There you can really see it. Very, very damaging stuff. And here what I'm trying to do is there are two feed wells for potted motors. There's two feed wells that a proper type of grease should be injected into. And what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to force the proper grease up through those wells to displace the contaminated oil grease that's in there right now. And you'll see some of that stuff that I'm digging out as well. You see right here real clearly in the rear, the pinkish type grease that I use, that I developed myself, is behind here, and it's displacing the contaminated grease that someone very foolishly put inside of this machine. Out with the old, in with the proper grease, so that this machine is not overheating and potentially going to short out. Here you can see the two intermingled. You've got the good grease and the bad grease as I'm digging it out of there as it's displaced. Now I'm using a dental tool to dig in there and scrape out some of this stuff that actually had fused to the inside of the walls of this area. Digging more of it out of there. I don't want any of that to be left behind. Mr. Bean is thanking me for my hard work. Very, very bad stuff. And as you'll see, it also got from this area here where the balance wheel chamber would be into the motor as well when we get over to that point. Good job, Herr Obermeister. Good job. And I'm just showing Captain Smith all of the stuff that we've dug out of that area where the worm gears are connecting to the motor. All of that bad caustic axle type grease that was pumped inside of the machine. Now we're concentrating on the balance wheel itself, which has the interlacing worm gears that connect up with the ones coming off of the motor. and that all has to be cleaned and properly serviced as well. Breaking down more of that stuff. You can see it actually, as the heat exchange happens with that operating, it actually fused itself to that main shaft where that balance wheel is supposed to be able to freely turn over on it, and it's actually being held back by all of this junk here that I'm chipping away at. You can see it there in the shot now. So a simple decision to use, to use a certain lubricant that maybe you saw somebody write about on a blog or a Facebook group or whatever it is, can add about 10 to 12 hours of work to the servicing of a machine like this. Basically what it did is it added about 12 hours of work for me to complete the process. Detailed cleaning adjacent to the bobbin winding tire, so that track that it runs on and all the areas adjacent to it are stripped of all the junk and the dirt and the oil. See the filthy Q-tip swab, and also below it you can see that fresh grease in there that's going to not infiltrate the motor. It's not going to cause overheating, and it's going to provide proper lubrication for that spin up area coming off the motor. Doing some critical lubrication on the bobbin winding assembly after it was cleaned. More servicing. And this is more of the outside of the balance wheel, stripping off the veneer and the dirt and oil from that as well. And this is a special, it's a paint safe, but it has more of an acetone type element to it to break down heavy lacquer. And then I wash it away after that using a clear solvent. But some of that stuff was really built up on there fast and furious, and I couldn't get it off using a normal approach. But it has to be used very, very carefully, especially in proximity to paint. This is our clutch retainer, and number one, it was installed backwards, how that's even possible, and it had a lot of buildup on it as well. There's the inside of our balance and clutch retainer. It screws on to hold everything together, and a lot of buildup in those tracks as well. Also, when you're disengaging this to wind a bobbin, this is part of the running surface right here that has to be free of all debris, and you can see there's all kinds of junk on there that are going to catch as you're trying to wind a bobbin and cause that needle to move when it shouldn't be moving. Now we're finally getting to some of the disaster area. I mean, I was getting ready to dial OSHA and hazmat crews and everything else, because inside of this area near the pitman arm and all that, we had a huge amount of that contaminated axle oil that someone had sprayed on the inside of there. You can actually see some of it dripping off of the upper part of the pitman arm right there. Let me zoom in on it. Look at that, all over the worm gears as well. And again, I wish we had smell-o-vision, if you could be able to smell what that stuff smelled like. It just tells you right away, this is not the kind of oil to use, or grease rather, on a sewing machine. You see that? And because it's designed for a CV boot, where it's a CV boot is basically a closed space. It's self-contained. It's not open to the elements. It's not open to a lot of air movement. And it works well on a car in that application. Because this is not a closed space, this is opened up. There's constant air movement from the bottom of the machine, from the side of the machine, from the back of the machine. This stuff becomes very, very thick and gooey and causes actually a huge amount of drag on the movement of the machine parts. It's just absolutely the worst possible grease that anyone could use on a sewing machine. And here it is, step by step, trying to get all that junk off of there. And we are finally on, we're finally on our final series of photos, I hope. So you can just see a close-up shot there of some of that grease on the Q-tip swab. I think you can. Even apart from the agents and how caustic it is, it's even the wrong consistency for a sewing machine application. Sewing machine application, because of the RPM factors and the spin up, it's got to be a lot thicker than that. Great for a CV boot, but very bad for a sewing machine. Also getting, because this grease is caustic, it actually caused some of the wraps. On the 201-2, you've got a cloth style wrap that protects the electrical feed to the light on the front of the machine, and it actually was causing some of that to actually break down and solidify. It's that aggressive, and it's that caustic. Now the worst news about this particular axle type grease that was used on this 201-2 is it also worked its way into the motor as well. All of this area right here that we're looking at, and this area right here, it's all of the commutator, and it's part of that electrical wrap as well. Should be a clear brass copper color. It should almost be orange. Well, it should be orange. It's more of an orange color. Can you see that? That stuff worked its way all the way in. It got onto the commutator. It got onto the wire wraps. It got onto these stacks that are part of that motor assembly as well. And it started to eat away at the wraps that are over the archways as well that are part of that motor assembly. It basically attacked the motor and everything else in its path. Another shot of the same concern, the same issue. And this is all part of the electrical field. It's all part of the electrical field. So it is something that has electricity flowing through it as it's trying to pass through these wraps and complete the circuit. And it's trying to go through this thick axle grease that's gotten into all those spaces. Here it's actually caused part of the housing around the motor to oxidize as well. Plus there's veneer buildup as well that's been attracted to the grease. Now we're starting to pull out the front assembly of the potted motor. Get to the rear, and we're finding that this area as well is soaked in a combination of oil and grease as well. This again should be more of a copper nickel type color, and it's just covered in that grease along with everything else. Plus right here you can see we have rusting in the rear there as well, near the motor brush chamber that feeds into the motor. And against the back wall there you can see that should be clean, and all these wires should be clean. We've got all that grease that made its way into that chamber, and now it's coated on everything. That's a sign of heat damage. Because the electrical fields are generating a lot of energy and also heat, that grease getting into that space then creates a heat retention, where there should be heat release, and it superheats the motor, and it causes all of this area that should be a nice clean kind of a copper look to it almost. It's brass, but it should be like a copper look. Causes it to become burnt. And that's not good for a motor, obviously. There's Dr. Singer's concerned look again. Went from happy to concerned. Or I should say he went from concerned to happy to concerned again. And here I'm showing you that part of these arch wraps on the rear of the motor are actually soaked in a combination of oil and grease. Again, as that motor heats up and spins, it liquefies that grease, because that grease, the axle grease, is more of a solvent type grease, and it's meant to move around in that CV boot on a car, but it gets too thin and then it starts to become almost like liquid inside of that motor, also causing the motor to have shorting out issues as well. You may not be able to see it in my shot there, but my finger's actually dampened, because those, yeah, you can see it. Those wraps and those arch wraps are soaked and actually wet from oil and grease. Now we're going to try to break all that down and get that basically filtered out of the motor area. We're going to try to flood the motor with a solvent that breaks all that stuff down and gets it to run out of there into that little catch basin down here. Look in the bottom of that catch basin on the right side, you can see that stuff collecting down there that we're washing out. And that's a little swab that I used to dig some of it out with as well. Isn't that disgusting? And that, a lot of that is preventable simply because they used an absolutely wrong grease in the machine, and it worked its way into the motor. All the boys are checking it out. They're like, holy cow, that's disgusting. No, those again, the wraps on that motor front right there should be more of a copper color. And they're just totally blackened by the grease that got into there. And it basically charred on there because that's all part of the electrical field right there. There's electricity running through it. You'll slowly start to see that orangey copper color starting to come back into view again as I slowly and methodically work on removing it from in between all of those motor wraps using the dental tool, and also cleaning solvents that are safe for the motor. We're getting really close now. This area has been cleaned around the commutator. This area here around the wraps, the stacks have been, with the dental tool, have been cleaned out as well of the dried and kind of caramelized axle grease that was in there. And now we're just starting to look at some of the additional components of the motor, the screws in that. This one has a damaged head, is kind of what I'm showing you in this shot. And so that had to be ground off a little bit so that someone using a screwdriver on it doesn't have it skip off or crack the head off completely, and then you have to drill it out. Here I'm showing you the motor nomenclature plate, and you can see that 201-2s and 1591s came with basically two different motors. They came with a 0.5 amp motor, and they came with a 0.6 amp motor. And this particular 201-2 from the early well, I shouldn't say early, from the mid to later 1930s came with a larger motor. And again, 1/10 of an amp is not going to be a showstopper once I've optimized the motor, but it is a larger motor nonetheless, a 0.6 versus a 0.5 that you'll find on a lot of the 201-2 models and the 1591s. Again, just showing you a busy workbench. A lot of stuff happening at the same time. A lot of stuff. And here we've done everything we can for this motor at this point. We've gotten through flushing it out. We've gotten all of the sediment of the axle type grease out of there, all the other buildup in there. We've carefully, very carefully, using a dental tool, gotten all of the extra stuff off of the wraps that we could, so that we can actually see that orangey copper appearance again, kind of the brass appearance of it. And now we're going to try a spin up to see what kind of motor power we've been able to restore to the machine. So you're going to see it go from this state right now being inert, it's not being operated, to a point where it's going to spin up to full power. And I can tell you, having been there and actually conducted that test, we were able to restore from the beginning, when it was contaminated and all the other challenges, to a point where it probably has about 90% of its power back. I would be pressing it to say 95, but let's just say that it's got the majority of its power back, and you saw that evidence today through all of the sew-offs that the machine performed effortlessly, whether it was genuine cowhide or whether it was the genuine alkyd or whatever it was. I mean, this 201-2 is able to get the job done again. It wasn't able to do it before. And now again, everything is important in my judgment, so now I'm concentrating on cleaning up that cap that goes over the potted motor, both on the inside and the outside, getting all the junk, all the varnishing, all the dirt off of it, so that we're not reintroducing, we're not putting a dirty cap back on a clean motor and reintroducing nastiness to that motor that's going to make it be compromised again. Also, the plate that goes over the rear of it, it's a decorative plate. Also cleaning that up as well. It was kind of varnished and just wasn't bright. It wasn't pizzazz, and we're trying to add that pizzazz factor back to it again. And that's pizzazz. That's really the whole point of that plate, is it adds that decorative accent, that beauty mark to the machine, and it just wasn't cutting it before, and now it is. Concentrating on the body of the machine again, getting that as much of that varnish and lacquering off as we can, layer by layer by layer by layer by layer. And again, we're not there yet. The machine still needs more attention. Now we're concentrating on the bottom of the machine. There are worm gear assemblies down there as well that need a lot of attention. Also, you can see we have rust on the bottom of the machine as well. And rust, for any of you that have ever dealt with rust on any type of whatever, know that it's incredibly debilitating to any surface that it's on. You can also see some of the rust and varnishing over here, underneath here on the bottom of the raceway as well. It just does not respect any boundaries. I've said that in other premieres. Rust goes wherever it wants to go. It does not respect any boundaries. And here on the 201-2, this is actually the assembly to drop the feed dogs. That was all caramelized and dirty and rusty as well. That's all been cleaned up. This is what you actually will pull out and unscrew in order to drop the feed dogs. So on the 201-2, as long as it has this assembly, you're able to do freehand embroidery without putting a darning plate on there, and then you can re-engage them again once you're done doing free motion quilting or whatever you want to do. Remember me talking about earlier in the shots, you saw me with a pair of tweezers and you saw almost like a fiber-like material near the back of the machine that I was holding on to with the tweezers? This is that electrical wrap that goes through the body, the pillar of the machine, feeding up to the light assembly on the front of the machine. And this, because of that caustic axle grease that had been pumped into this machine, it was actually causing this fibrous wrap to break down, and that's what I was pulling out of the machine. Because otherwise it gets stuck in the worm gears, and it could create other issues for the machine as well. So one of the major rocker arms on the bottom of the machine that feeds down to the raceway. And here I'm just mitigating all of the rust and the varnishing and the veneer that's built up on that as well. Because again, this is not a fixed component. It actually has to move with the motion of the machine. So all of that has to be cleaned as well. All of it has to be cleaned. And if there are any skeptics watching this and saying that's like over the top, that's unnecessary, you need to go back to school. Matter of fact, I'll say it more bluntly. If you think that what you've seen in this process is excessive, and again, this is only about 1/5 of the process that I took this 201-2 through. If you think that this is excessive, then you need to stay after class and do extra credit. Yep. And if you agree with that, any of you that are regular followers and understand the value of what I'm doing, you can type in the chat if you want, yep, you're after class, or you're going to have to do extra credit, or whatever you want to type in there. I mean, that's fine, just to send a message. Look at the difference as that's starting to come together now. You're starting to see that nice nickel finish, a nice clean surface, and also the ends as well where it's going to be pivoting. There we're starting to make some real good headway on the bottom of that machine. One of the most common areas of a sewing machine that are neglected is the bottom of the machine, and there's so many things going on there. Here you've got some interlacing worm gears that have a combination of that nasty axle grease, varnishing, caramelized buildup. You can actually see some of the fibering from that electrical wrap on there as well. See that? That's what I was talking about. It doesn't stay in one location. It migrates all over the machine, and then it gets in between there. And you can see as a result of inadequate lubrication, we actually have some metal degradation there. Some of those worm gear joints, those teeth, have actually started to wear down. They should be a lot tighter than that. Just shows you what seems like a simple act can become, I mean, a major headache for me, but a major impact on the machine as well. So eventually those worm gears will probably have to be replaced. More cleaning. You can see those surfaces are bright as they should be instead of contaminated as they were. More servicing, also checking set points and making a very fine adjustment on the timing, which requires 3 different set screws here and on the other end of the machine in order to get those worm gears timed correctly so that the needle is passing into the raceway, etc. at the proper time. Digging in between all of those worm gear grooves, all those teeth to get all the junk out of there. And then applying a proper grease to them so that they're not going to be slamming against each other anymore. Again, the whole properties of that axle grease are wrong for the sewing machine. It's not creating that buffer and that cushion. It's allowing them to, as that machine is spinning up, instead of this grease that I developed, creating a nice cushion flow of those metal to metal worm gears flowing over each other instead of crashing into each other. It's absolutely essential. And there they are, nicely protected now, clean, protected, and ready to operate in an optimal way, just as you saw them do today. We didn't see them because they're out of sight, out of mind, but just as they did today in delivering steady, reliable power down to the needle. Another set of critical worm gears on the other end of the machine, below the raceway stack, that also have to be clean, conditioned, and treated properly. And were bone dry, apart from the nasty caustic grease prior to me servicing them. More adjustments. Team is pretty excited. They know we're close to the finish line now. They're pretty excited. You notice Reggie has, you want to talk about, if you've ever seen the movie with Sandra, what is her name? Totally brain farting here. Sandra Bullock in the movie Oh, what is it? You know what I'm talking about. Um, something line, something line, something line. What is it? Oh, I can't totally type it in the chat right now if you know what movie I'm talking about. Blindside, Blindside. There it is. The movie Blindside. Um, you know, they're talking about this football player's capabilities. He has a very low IQ by their standards, and other things he ranks real low on. But when it comes to protective instincts, Michael Orr, who is the main character, a real person in real life that this story is based on. If you haven't seen it, it's a great film, Blindside, with Sandra Bullock. She does a fabulous job in the movie, as do the other actors. But when they rate his protective instincts, Michael Orr, this football player that eventually goes to the NFL, he's off the charts. Very, very protective. Reggie White is the same way. You can see him right here in the shot, making sure that that machine doesn't somehow rock back on his friends. Oh, you couldn't even see that because the shot was wrong. But here he's holding that machine so it doesn't rock back and hurt Mr. Bean or the captain, Captain Smith, or Herr Obermeister. So I bet you Reggie is off the charts on protective instincts as well. Yep. Dr. Singer kind of keeping an eye on things. And there is a position of completion, a position of victory. As the boys are looking at the fact that I've done the sew-offs, the machine has restored power. It's no longer contaminated with that axle grease. All of the parts of the machine have been optimized. The motor has been restored. And the evidence of that is the quality and the ease that the machine is stitching now, just as you saw evidence today during this live premiere. And these are just some of the shots of the stitching that I did. These are the ones that were done off camera. You saw the other ones done on camera today. And you can see the thickness of that genuine alkyd right there from the side. And you can also see the quality of the stitching as well once the machine has been finalized. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. And again, sewing a material like this that's chemically processed got the job done so easily, it's ridiculous. There's our U.S. Army grade canvas sew-off. I think it was 6 layers. Quality of the stitching is just spot on. Just spot on. Another angle. Quality of stitching. Also the stitch length variation that I tested the machine at as well, all the way down to about 30 stitches per inch, all the way to 6 stitches per inch. So, and not just on denim, but also on leather, as you saw in the previous shot. And red thread is just, I think it's gorgeous to look at, but it's always hard to film. It's super hard to film. So what you can't see in that shot is the stitch definition. The presentation is just absolutely spot on. There's our field of stitching that I did off camera. Everything from a cotton blend to protected full grain leather to U.S. Army grade canvas to genuine alkyd on the far left hand side there underneath the presser foot. And that's our final shot. And I have to commend all of you students, who also sometimes are teachers, for persevering through those 4 series of photos. Aren't you thankful that I only documented about 1/5 of my work? Otherwise, we would have had 5 times more photos than you just saw. And I know there were a lot of pictures, but I want to do that so that you can see clearly. My gosh, Scott's process is off the charts. He digs in the machines like no one else I've ever seen in the world. And he continually is improving his process as well. He's not happy with how detailed his process is now. He wants to make it better and better and better and better and better and better. That's what I'm all about. And that's what this workshop is all about as well. So this is the good part right here, where we can see the evidence of what this process translates to. It's not just a process, but it bears incredible fruits. Incredible fruits. Even down to how bright that bed is right now with this LED bulb as a result of the work that we did on the lighting housing with replacing that reflective shield that had been scorched and was worn away. All these things matter. All these things matter. And the final proof in the pudding is being able to do a live premiere like this in front of all of you and do a sew-off sandwich like this with an incredible field of materials of different thicknesses, and have this 201-2 that's going to be heading back to Avon Park, Florida real soon, have it be able to perform at this level. I mean, that is something. That is really something. So with that, I think we can wrap this premiere up. First of all, I'll ring the bell. And we will wrap this up with a little bit of music as we started to honor our new guest, or I should say our new friend that is part of the workshop now. And obviously our new friend, once she has a name, will probably be seen in some of the shots just as the boys are, particularly as we're working on Japanese clone machines, for obvious reasons. Well, as many of you will say to me on Facebook and elsewhere, another successful project of taking a machine that was destined for the dustbin, or destined to be binned, as my friends over in the UK say, and now she is returned to her full glory. Good stuff.